Chapter 2032. Mr. Che Tian took out a small notebook to record something, but it was just an ordinary notebook and pen. However, he did not tell Natsuya Suzuki how to deal with the triplet. After that, Che Tian-sensei put on the masks of the three robbers again and said indifferently, "Just leave them here. If they are discovered by the people from the agency, let them take them away. If they are not taken away, they will leave on their own." Natsuya Suzuki did not directly kill these guys. He simply knocked them out. This was something he had to do carefully. He was afraid that he would really kill these guys with a punch, but this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that he was afraid of destroying the city streets and public facilities. Although the actions were supported by the employer's will, in theory, he would not be held accountable by the new boss. But the chief executive was temperamental. She liked to beat up the black soul envoys in the shop. If only Eleanor had not retired, Natsuya Suzuki muttered in his heart. Since the previous boss brought the current servant girl's soul from heaven, Eleanor's daily work was slowly replaced. This seemed to be part of Eleanor's autonomy. After the war in Eurasia 100 years ago, he and Eleanor went on vacation one after another. In fact, before he reincarnated as Natsuya Suzuki, he had reincarnated as another person, Natsuya Suzuki. This was his third reincarnation during his vacation. Natsuya Suzuki did not have any opinion on Mr. Che Tian's decision to abandon the three guys who wanted to kidnap Lamia's. But he still asked curiously, "Aren't you afraid that they will attack the woman below again if you let them go?" Mr. Che Tian said indifferently, "I am someone who is not involved in the history of the world. I am only responsible for recording the history of the world and should not be involved in it. This time, I have already crossed the line." Natsuya Suzuki shrugged and said disapprovingly, "The secret society is quite big, but perhaps you are the only one who is obediently working as a recorder." "You know a lot about the secret society?" Mr. Che Tian suddenly asked. Natsuya Suzuki made a gesture of counting money. Che Tian-sensei shook his head and said, "There's nothing else. Let's go back. It's not like letting these guys go was completely useless. At the very least, I might be able to record what the person behind them wants to do. Tonight's attack shouldn't be limited to this place." As he spoke, Che Tian-sensei looked into the distance. There was a red light shining into the night sky. Naturally, that was the direction of the hotel where the night mechanism was staying. Not long after Natsuya Suzuki and the other two left, two men wearing the same mask came to the rooftop of the office building. They carried the three unconscious people on their shoulders and quickly left. They led their companions through the dark night and finally arrived at the riverside. They jumped into the water and floated along the waterway until they left the Forbidden City. Only then did they come ashore. After they came ashore, the two used their true power to dry the traces of water on their clothes. Then, they took the three unconscious companions and quickly moved towards a mountain in front of them. Because they had left the Forbidden City, their speed increased tremendously. In less than 10 minutes, they arrived at their destination, an ancient mansion hidden in the forest. They went straight to the inner hall of the mansion. The three unconscious companions also woke up at this time. Team 1 failed the mission, Team 3 failed the mission. In the end, we only brought one back. In the inner hall, the young man with the broken palm, Gongsun Jishui, looked at the unconscious Farlier who was lying alone on the ground. In front of him stood 7 people. No matter if it was height, clothes, or even aura, they were exactly the same. Stella wasn't seriously injured. We suspect that he was faking it when he fainted at the conference yesterday. We didn't even see what they looked like. We didn't even have time to react before we lost consciousness. Although Gongsun Jishui felt that it was a pity that they didn't manage to kidnap Stella, if the priest was pretending to be injured, it could only be said that their intelligence was wrong. Failure was not unacceptable. But on Lamia's side, before they could react, they already lost consciousness? Gongsun Jishui was puzzled about this matter. According to the feedback of the intelligence, this should not have been intercepted by the agency. Otherwise, the 3 people who captured Lamias would not have been brought back safely. However, it should not be possible to use any power in the Forbidden City. Yet, they were able to knock out all the members of Team 3 who captured Lamias. What kind of method did they use? Some kind of new weapon that has not been disclosed yet? At this time, seeing that Gongsun Jishui did not speak, the members of Team 1 and 3 who failed the mission silently took out a dagger each. Without any hesitation, they directly stabbed towards their hearts. Gongsun Jishui waved his hand and a wave of true power instantly swept the daggers out of their hands. Mission failure is considered a failure. There is no reason to leave a failure. Gongsun Jishui said calmly, however, we lost too many people in the Ghost City. The new batch of Shadow Warriors is not mature yet. Leave your lives and continue to serve the young master. This is the only time. Yes, Gongsun Jishui waved his hand and said, although 2 teams failed, at least we brought 1 back. It's not like we didn't gain anything. There is not much value in leaving the Forbidden City. You guys take Feral and leave first. Master Jishui, you? I did a small experiment before, the results are not out yet. But thinking about it, it should be about time. Gongsun Jishui waved his hand and said, go. A moment later, this ancient mansion hidden in the mountain forest had no lights, and it was empty. Night. In the Forbidden City, inside an interview car parked on the street. Officer Ma opens the package of the shredded pork with green pepper. However, after a few mouthfuls of rice, he can't taste the food. The main reason is that it's really painful to have 2 horns stuck on his head. In the past few days of releasing the snakes, Sir Ma spent 2 to 3 hours putting on makeup almost every day. On such a hot day, with such thick makeup, the middle-aged Sir Ma couldn't take it anymore. Old Yi, do you think what we are doing is really useful? Ma Hao looked at Yi Yan with a hint of sadness. A lot of things happened in the summit meeting these days. Yi Yan thought for a while and said, as ordinary people, we probably underestimated the power of the extraordinaries. Maybe for this organization that wants to take revenge on the extraordinaries, the extraordinary power shown by the Power Conference made them feel deep despair. Not only them, I feel despair too. Sir Ma was eating. He really couldn't taste anything at this time. If it wasn't for the fact that it happened right in front of my eyes, I would have thought that it was a special effect. Our world is changing rapidly. Yi Yan shook his head. If you can't adapt, you can only be eliminated. Speaking of which, Ali asked me to invest in real estate last time. Sir Ma's expression changed slightly. Oh no, I didn't take it seriously before. Now I don't know if it's too late. Yi Yan immediately said righteously, as a good public servant, how can you think of such things? Sir Ma was angry at once and said furiously, damn you, other than your own house, you also have a martial arts school of a few hundred square meters to inherit. Of course you can talk like that. I still have to feed my family, okay? The little werewolf in the interview car could only squat in a corner, trembling, and watch the conversation between the two gradually forget their original intention. But at this moment, an email suddenly appeared on the built-in screen of the interview car. Mr. Werewolf curiously opened it and took a look. Then he immediately opened his mouth and said quickly, Master Yi, Officer Ma, come and see what this is. The two stopped bickering and quickly walked over. This is... Sir Ma couldn't help but open his mouth. Yi Yan frowned. Can you find out where this email came from? Let me try. Mr. Werewolf quickly typed on the keyboard. Yi and Ma looked at the mysterious email with a serious expression on their faces. This was because the content of the email was actually information about the ice cream pudding organization. Not only information in the email, it even marked the hiding place of the members of the organization. I can't find it. I can't find where it came from. It seems to have appeared out of thin air. Mr. Werewolf couldn't help but say in surprise, There's no trace at all. The other party must be a terrifying hacker. Olji, what do you think? No matter what. Yen thought for a while and said, "It's okay to try, it's better than waiting for the rabbit to come out. Let's go and observe this place first." Yen pointed at a place on the electronic map and said quickly, "That was an area with many urban villages in the City of Exclusion. It was one of the old districts of the City of Exclusion." Nan Xiaonan took a risk and avoided the patrolling police cars at night. She quietly came to a warehouse near the city, under the threat or instruction of the Red Queen. Since the last time she was threatened by the Red Queen, she went to the temple and showed up in front of Mr. Jean. Then the Red Queen disappeared, and then she suddenly appeared today. These days, Nan Xiaonan didn't take the initiative to contact Mr. Jean and the others. Although she was still active in the urban village, she was still a worker who was worried about finding a job. Mr. Kim was a very careful or even suspicious person. If there were too many traces of contact, it would be very easy for him to become suspicious. As long as this was the City of Forbidden, no matter how powerful she was, this witch from another world's academies could only play like an ordinary person would. However, in Nan Xiaonan's opinion, the last time she showed up at the temple, there seemed to be a deliberate trace. She didn't know why the Red Queen made such an arrangement. These few days, Boss Jean seemed to have given up on observing her. Unknowingly, she arrived at the designated warehouse area. There was no one around. Nan Xiaonan spent some time to find the designated warehouse among the warehouses. The moment she arrived, the electronic lock of the warehouse was opened instantly. Ah! What a convenient ability! Nan Xiaonan pursed her lips and walked into the warehouse with a calm expression. The warehouse lit up instantly. Nan Xiaonan wasn't surprised. In this heavily networked world, the Red Queen's ability was almost godlike to some extent. At this moment, a screen on one side of the warehouse lit up instantly. Nan Xiaonan saw the Red Queen's true appearance. She was wearing a red dress, the image of a perfect woman. "Open the box in front of you." The Red Queen's voice sounded directly. Although it was called a box, it was actually a small container. Following the Red Queen's instructions, Nan Xiaonan opened the container's password lock layer by layer. Finally, at the innermost part of the container, she saw a 2-meter-tall eco-cabin. She opened it. As expected, after seeing the contents of the eco-cabin clearly, Nan Xiaonan muttered. She wasn't too surprised. When the Red Queen asked her to do a special star creation, she already had a vague guess. As expected, inside the eco-cabin was a perfectly proportioned female body. On the eco-cabin's display, there were even some basic data of this female body. This was a precision machine covered with a simulated skin. But the purpose of star creation was to give a dead object a soul and the vitality of a living creature. Nan Xiaonan frowned and said, "Since this is a machine, you can load your own data and let it move. Why do you still want to do star creation? Isn't this superfluous?" Nan Xiaonan had no doubt that the Red Queen could do this. "I need a real touch, not a simulation of signals." The female body in the eco-cabin suddenly opened her eyes and looked at Nan Xiaonan as she said, "I hope your star creation technology won't disappoint me." Nan Xiaonan thought for a while and said, "Star creation will let this body give birth to a new soul directly." The Red Queen said indifferently, "I believe you have a way to retain the vitality of star creation creatures at the same time and not create a soul." Nan Xiaonan thought for a while and said, "I can help you with this special star creation, but I have a condition." "Say it." Nan Xiaonan said, "After this star creation, I hope that there will be no more involvement between us. I don't want to cause unnecessary trouble. I also don't want any reward from you. Just treat it as me doing voluntary work." The Red Queen's ability was too frightening. In this information age, unless she ran into an artificial primitive forest, her every move would be under the Red Queen's surveillance. Originally, as the computer host of star creation creatures, Little H should be able to play a few games, but unfortunately, little 8 was a bootlicker. This made Nan Xiaonan feel very annoyed. Why was it that after coming to this subworld, his Star Creations items always had a strange character? I can only promise you that I will not take the initiative to hurt you, the Red Queen said indifferently. I will even help you and do some of the things you are doing. She was clearly relying on her, right? Nan Xiaonan clicked her tongue and shook her head. She said helplessly, I hope you are an honest person. I am unlucky. She closed the eco-cabin directly. This was still the city of exclusion. It had not reached the recovery area. She still needed to pull this body out of the city before she could really carry out star creation. Speaking of which, this body, isn't it similar to the future lady boss? Chapter 2033. On the rural road outside the city of exclusion, Nan Xiaonan had just gotten rid of the influence of the power of exclusion when she parked the truck by the side. What a joke! How could a coward like her drive the truck too far away? Of course, she would do bad things at the border of the city of exclusion. As the saying went, she could attack or retreat. Even if God was old, Nan Xiaonan would consider herself defeated if she could penetrate the city of exclusion by even a millimeter. On the small satellite TV screen on the truck, the Red Queen looked at Nan Xiaonan as if she was an idiot. She did not say anything. Through precise calculations, the Red Queen came to the conclusion that Nan Xiaonan was really a coward. However, the Red Queen was very interested in the ability of star creation. She was interested in any transcendent power in this world. Through the ability to control the sea of information and the Black Card website behind the scenes, she had been crazily collecting all the information about transcendence in the world since the Transcendent Summit. She only had one goal: evolution. Evolution without limit. Nan Xiaonan had opened the ecopod again. The Red Queen's observation of Nan Xiaonan, who was about to enter star creation, had reached its peak. Inside the container, there were more than 500 miniature cameras. Even a slight change in expression was clearly recorded at this time. There were even a few electromagnetic wave detection devices installed at the bottom of the truck. This was to observe the changes in the energy magnetic field in real time. Walala, balala, even every syllable that Nan Xiaonan said was recorded. But what the hell was walala balala? Although the Red Queen felt that it was a little inappropriate, star creation was a completely unfamiliar field. She recorded it down as it was. Perhaps these strange syllables could have a different effect on the changing magnetic field? Billy's mom screws up balls. As more and more strange syllables appeared, the magnetic field in the container started to change violently. Under the Red Queen's watch, the female robot's body in the ecopod started to change unbelievably. At the same time, a part of the data that the Red Queen had downloaded into the new body in advance was also changing beyond the scope of scientific knowledge. His body no longer felt cold and mechanical. In the end, hundreds and thousands of strange runes of different combinations appeared in the air. With a press from Nan Xiaonan, all the runes directly entered the body. In my name. Nan Xiaonan was currently saying something in a low voice. Her eyes had also instantly transformed into a resplendent color like the stars. The entire interior of the container was now flickering with a color like the Milky Way. Bang! After a slight tremor, the interior of the container flashed with a brilliant light, and everything returned to normal in the end. The witch of the academic faction in the subworld leaned on the side of the container with a tired face. The suppression of this subworld on her, the great teacher of Xing Chuang, was still very strong, but it was better than being completely suppressed. As a matter of fact, Nan Xiaonan knew that if her future boss hadn't opened a back door for her in this subworld, no matter how hard she tried, it would be very difficult for her to carry out such a star creation in this subworld in the next 180 years. Xing Chuang was a very strange ability. It had nothing to do with the structure of the substance itself. It was only related to the mass of the substance itself. The heavier the substance, the more difficult it would be for Xing Chuang, and vice versa. For example, the soft cotton was the most basic of pillows. Nan Xiaonan was easily finished by Xing Chuang. As for the Red Queen's body, because it was filled with machinery and precision components, its mass was much greater than a human of the same size. The Xing Chuang incident this time had drained Nan Xiaonan's spirit. She wouldn't be able to recover without at least half a month. She rubbed her swollen head and said with a hoarse voice, "How is it, this body? Are you satisfied? This is the real feeling?" The woman in the ecological cabin, the Red Queen, slowly climbed out. Everything seemed to be a curiosity to her. She stepped on the floor of the container and raised her arm, as if to feel the flow of air. A very strange feeling. This, I can call it a feeling. The Red Queen, who had a body, said indifferently, "But why do I feel that this body is still a machine? You can eat, you can drink, you can poop," Nan Xiaonan said proudly, "but you are still a machine. A machine with all the normal abilities of a human woman." "I can still give birth?" the Red Queen suddenly said in astonishment. She even lowered her head, and her palm even stroked her lower abdomen, this flat area without any excess fat. "Giving birth to a machine like you?" Nan Xiaonan shrugged and said. "Really, an incredible ability." The Red Queen nodded and stretched her body. "This feeling is good, very good. You can slowly uncover the secrets of this body." Nan Xiaonan thought for a while and said, "I have done what you asked me to do. From now on, I hope you will keep your promise and not disturb my life." In this highly information-based world, the Red Queen was the kind of person who was extremely difficult to deal with. If draining himself of his spirit and being weak for 1.5 months in exchange for peace, for a lone traveler who could walk in the void, it was quite a good deal. Second precept: avoid trouble as much as possible. "Don't worry, I won't bring you any trouble." The Red Queen smiled and said, "On the contrary, I will give you a lot of help." "Thank you." Nan Xiaonan shook her head. "If there is nothing else, I will go back." "Wait." The Red Queen suddenly shouted. "I heard from Little 8 that star creation is also divided into temporary and permanent star creation. This body?" Nan Xiaonan rolled her eyes and said, "Do you think that I would use temporary star creation to brush you off because I like you and you keep bothering me? You are not lying." The Red Queen nodded. "You can go back. I want to familiarize myself with this new body. Finally, thank you." Nan Xiaonan looked at the Red Queen in surprise and did not say anything. She nodded silently and quickly left the truck and walked to the border of the city of exclusion. She looked at the container truck parked by the road in the distance, and found that the container truck had started moving and was moving away. Until it disappeared, Nan Xiaonan retracted her gaze. "I hope you will not find trouble with me again. Even if it is a permanent star creation, I can take it back." Any star creation creature was based on the star creation technique she created. She could create, so she could decompose and let the star creation creature return to its original form. It was just that she had never told any of the star creation creatures that she had created. Even if she was sealed in the star creation world because she fell into the subworld, the most loyal star creation creatures that had accompanied her for countless years would not know this secret. First precept: keep a secret only known to yourself. No. The star creation technique information that I wrote to my future boss seemed to have written this secret. Why did I write it then? Forget it, forget it. Anyway, the future boss was an indescribable existence, who had surpassed the Void Overlord. She could not hide even if she wanted to. Let's just go with the flow for now. Then, Nan Xiaonan encountered a rather serious problem. The city of exclusion had a curfew. She could not hail a taxi. Not long after dawn. "Morning, Sister Xiaonan." Nan Xiaonan turned her neck stiffly and saw a girl appear beside her. The young lady at the counter of Mr. Jin's electrical appliance store, Bei Bei. Looking at the way the girl carried a bag, she should have just come out to buy breakfast. "Morning," Nan Xiaonan weakly responded at this time. Sister Xiaonan, you look very tired? Bei Bei looked at Nan Xiaonan in surprise. At this moment, Nan Xiaonan seemed to be unable to straighten her back. When she walked, it looked like she was dragging her body. She looked very weak? It's okay. I just got off work, so I'm a little tired. She could not say that she had walked dozens of kilometers in the middle of the night and just got off work? Bei Bei was even more surprised. She suddenly thought of a problem. This Sister Xiaonan had indeed been looking for a job recently. She had even vaguely asked if the electrical appliance store would hire people. Furthermore, she had asked her several times about the welfare of the one mansion at the end of the street. Just got off work? In the city of exclusion, a curfew was in effect at night. Basically, all the shops would be closed, unless it was a place that allowed customers to stay overnight. For example, hotels were very common. However, there were other places that allowed customers to stay overnight. For example, this mansion was one of them. Sister Xiaonan said that she had worked for a whole night. She still looked so tired and could not straighten her back. It was as if her body had been hollowed out. Could it be? She really went to that mansion to be a technician? You seem to be thinking about something strange? Nan Xiaonan frowned subconsciously. No. Bei Bei shook her head hurriedly. Then, she quickly took out some food from the shopping bag. Come, Sister Xiaonan. You must be hungry after working for a whole night. Let's eat something first. Nan Xiaonan was indeed hungry, so she didn't stand on ceremony when she heard Bei Bei's words. Moreover, this was quite in line with her image as a greedy worker girl. She accepted Bei Bei's good intentions without hesitation. They sat down on chairs outside a milk tea shop that was not open yet. Then, they chatted casually. It was nothing more than what had happened in the past few days. At this moment, Nan Xiaonan lifted her leg and rubbed her ankle. She showed a sore expression. Not only was her body tired, but she was also dizzy after being mentally drained. Sister Xiaonan, this job of yours seems to be very tiring? Bei Bei asked tentatively at this moment. It's okay. It's just that the customer I met last night was a little troublesome, Nan Xiaonan said casually. Not only did he have a lot of demands, he was also fierce. Forget it, let's not talk about it. Eat more food. Nourish your body. Bei Bei took out some fresh food. Demanding and fierce. No wonder it was so tiring. Sister Xiaonan worked hard to earn money for her body. No wonder she was so stingy and liked to take advantage of others. Indeed, I should nourish myself. Last night, I was almost drained dry. Nan Xiaonan nodded and began to wolf down the food. Sister Xiaonan, your current job is so tiring. Have you ever thought of quitting and changing to another job? Bei Bei suddenly asked. Nan Xiaonan was startled. Her role as a worker automatically switched. If I don't do it, who will take care of me? You? What I mean is, find another job that doesn't seem so tiring. Bei Bei shook his head. We'll talk about it later. In this day and age, it's good enough to have a job. Nan Xiaonan shook her head. Besides, it's not safe outside. It might be safer here. Haven't you seen the things on the internet these past few days? Extraordinary powers had been fermenting for a long time. The city of abstinence also occupied the top few trending topics on the internet every day. The discussion and analysis of the city of abstinence's position in the extraordinary society in the future had been done countless times. As long as ordinary people were not retarded, they generally understood the position of the city of abstinence in the future. In that case, although life in the city was very difficult, it was understandable that people still wanted to stay here. If they had some kind of fear of extraordinary powers, it would be even more so. Mr. Jin's team did not keep secrets from each other. Everyone in the team now knew that this Sister Xiaonan was very likely one of the victims of extraordinary powers. Sister Xiaonan's fiancé seemed to have been attacked by some kind of transcendent creature a few months ago, and then he fell off a cliff and died. Based on this speculation, Sister Xiaonan, would rather live in the City of Forbidden than leave the City of Forbidden and face the terrifying transcendent power. It was reasonable for her to do so. Ice Cream Pudding, a revenge group formed by a group of victims of extraordinary powers, had basically confirmed that Sister Xiaonan was also a victim. Their impression of her changed from wariness to sympathy. Although they still could not have intimate contact with her, their impression of her had quietly changed. Bei Bei took a deep breath and suddenly held Nan Xiaonan's hand. No matter what, we are still friends. Sister Xiaonan, if you have any difficulties, we will help you. You? Nan Xiaonan opened her mouth in surprise. And Boss Jean? Bei Bei smiled and said, aren't we all friends? We even ate hot pot together. At your house. Nan Xiaonan seemed to be amused, and she smiled casually. Speaking of which, didn't you come out to buy breakfast? Why aren't you going back to open the shop? Aren't you afraid that Boss Jean will deduct your salary if you are late? It's okay. Bei Bei waved his hand. But I do have to go back. Sister Xiaonan, you should go home and rest too. Take care of your body. Some jobs are too tiring and too hard, so it's better not to do them. After all, this kind of youthful life doesn't taste good. You have to plan for the future. Oh, okay, I will take care. Looking at the energetic girl running away, Nan Xiaonan couldn't help rubbing her chin. She felt that she had been misunderstood. But, their relationship seems to have improved a lot all of a sudden? Nan Xiaonan frowned. Was it because the Red Queen asked her to go to the temple? The effect was so good, eh? Old Ma, what are you about? In a unit of an old building on the street, Yi Yan looked at Sir Ma curiously. Ma Hao thought for a while and said, this woman. Why does she look like the new medical examiner Nan in our bureau? Medical examiner? Yi Yan couldn't help but be surprised. He thought for a while and said, this looks like the work of an entertainment place. How can she be a medical examiner in the bureau? Are the medical examiners in your bureau so free now that they can work part-time at night? I just said that she looks like one. Why are you so excited? Sir Ma rolled his eyes. Master Yi, Officer Ma, the target has appeared. On the street, a man wearing a hat and a windbreaker walked out with his head down. Soon, he walked into another alley in the middle of the city. Follow him, Yi Yan said quickly. Chapter 2034. What is he doing? Yi Yan and the other two had been following Boss Jean for more than 2 hours. Boss Jean didn't have a fixed place to go. He was like a wanderer in the city, walking aimlessly. Boss Jean even took the bus to the main station and took the bus back. Maybe he's checking out the terrain. Yi Yan analyzed. Boss Jin's original name is Jean Zhe. He was a member of the British Marines. After he retired, he migrated to Europe and ran a bar. Checking out the terrain? Ma Hao thought for a while and frowned. Looking at the situation, these guys are preparing to do something. According to Sir Ma's years of experience, when it was time to do something, the criminals would look around crazily. It could be to find the culprit or to plan an escape route. Master Yi, since we can confirm that Jean Zhe is hiding in the second-hand electrical shop, why don't we just send people to capture him? Little Werewolf asked curiously. Yi Yan shook his head and said, first of all, we can only confirm that Jean Zhe and Bei Bei are hiding in an electrical appliance store. The other members of this organization are still unknown. Next, they're hiding in a city with a complicated flow of people. According to the information we have, they have the ability to create dangerous weapons. If we start a fight in a busy city, the impact will be very bad. I see. Little Werewolf nodded. But he felt that it was more likely because this was the Forbidden City. Actually, there's one more thing to consider. Sir Ma suddenly said, we still don't know who sent us the email about the hiding place. It could be a trap to lure us. A trap? Little Werewolf took a deep breath. Shh. Jean Zhe got off. Yi Yan made a shushing gesture. Boss Jean suddenly got off the bus. He didn't wait at the bus stop but walked alone on the street. There were many people on the street. There were many people on the street. The reason was that the extraordinary summit didn't start today. Although the discussion on the internet didn't die down, people didn't stay at home for a few days. Some of the energetic lads who had experienced the strength conference came out to cause trouble again. The worship of power caused many different voices to appear in the Forbidden City. According to our previous investigation, Jean Zhe once taught a lesson to some hooligans who worshipped supernatural powers. At this time, Yi Yan quickly said, but since that time, he hasn't made a move again. It seems that he finally can't hold back anymore. They quietly stared at Boss Jean as he turned into an alley, and in this alley, 6 or 7 energetic young men were having a party. They didn't wear strange clothes, but they were graffiti on the walls of the alley. They drew some strange characters, spells, magic circles, and the like. It looked good, but it didn't have any special power. Just when Yi Yan and the others thought that Boss Jean was going to make a move, Boss Jean only glanced at them coldly, then immediately turned and left the alley. No wonder we didn't get anything when we released the snakes. Old Ma frowned. It seems that Jean Zhe is just doing it occasionally. He doesn't take pleasure in it. He is really a restrained guy. At the same time, he is also very vigilant. After that, Boss Jean wandered around for a while. When it was almost noon, he took a shared electric car and slowly drove back to the second-hand electrical appliance store. At this moment, Yi Yan took off his coat and changed his clothes. "What are you going to do?" Old Ma asked quickly. "I'm going to inquire about the situation in this electrical appliance store." Old Ma shook his head. "You can't go, I'll go. You've been chasing them for such a long time, there's no guarantee that they don't have your information. But I'm different, I'm a new face, they may not know me." Yi Yan was silent for a moment, then nodded and said decisively, "Well, you can do as you see fit, we'll support you." With that, Yi Yan threw the new coat to Sir Ma. "Do you think I can wear this damn size? Then don't wear it." "Excuse me, what can I do for you?" In front of the counter, Bibi, who was eating, saw a middle-aged greasy man with a big belly coming in, and asked with a smile, "I'm just looking around." The middle-aged greasy man, Sir Ma said casually. He felt that he was in a good state at the moment. He hadn't done this kind of thing for many years. Since he became a sheriff, this kind of thing was done by his subordinate. But he was still a little excited. But it seemed that he didn't expose anything, as expected. He was still a treasure. "Just look around." Bibi showed a sweeter smile, then lowered her head to eat, while watching boring TV series. Officer Ma began to browse in the store casually, but at the same time, he secretly observed the situation around. There were a lot of shelves, and the store seemed to be crowded. If they fought here, there would be many obstacles, and there seemed to be a back door for them to escape at any time. Good Lord, there were surveillance cameras in all 4 corners of the store. There were surveillance cameras in front of the store, so there should be surveillance cameras at the back door too. "Little girl, are you alone in this store?" Sir Ma suddenly asked. Bibi was startled at this moment and stood up abruptly. "What's going on?" Sir Ma was also startled, subconsciously stepped back, and instinctively wanted to put his hands on his waist. "No." Bibi shouted suddenly, "Don't step on it." "Step on it?" Sir Ma suddenly shivered, and abruptly changed his instinctive action to avoid exposing his identity. Then he looked down, only to find that he was stepping on a furry tail. A dog? It was indeed a dog. At this moment, Sir Ma was stepping on a dog's tail. To be exact, it was a lifeless dead dog. With Ma Hao's weight, the dog would definitely go crazy if he stepped on the dog's tail unconsciously. But to Sir Ma's surprise, the dog didn't move at all, and didn't even raise its eyes. A lifeless aura was coming at him. Lift it. I'm sorry. At this time, Bei Bei had already rushed over, and Officer Ma hurriedly took a step back. Bei Bei stretched out her hand and began to rub the dog's tail to comfort it. But the dog still didn't respond. "Is this dog sick?" Sir Ma couldn't help asking. Bibi shook her head. I don't know, it was like this when I brought it back. It could eat and drink, but it didn't like to move. It didn't respond to my calls, and just curled up in this place. Maybe it's depressed? Sir Ma said. At this moment he thought for a while and said casually, I have a dog at home, and it was like this for a long time after I sterilized it, but it wasn't as serious as this one. Saying this, Sir Ma directly squatted down, and directly lifted the dog's tail to check. Hey, where are its eggs? Unexpectedly, as soon as Officer Ma lifted the dog's tail, the dog, which had been lying on the ground lifelessly, suddenly rushed out as if it had gone mad. This dog was so strong that Officer Ma, who weighed almost 190 kilograms, was pushed down by it. A scream instantly resounded in the electrical appliance shop. Damn! My Qilin arm! In the car, Yi Yen casually took off his headphones, shook his head, and had a strange expression. At this moment, the little werewolf glanced at him and said somewhat embarrassedly, Master Yi, your former colleague is really interesting. But things didn't go badly. On the contrary, because of this, Ma Haud actually stayed. The girl at the front desk, Bibi, was now looking for medicine to stop the bleeding and disinfect Ma Haud's wound out of apology. Hey! This Officer Ma, did he deliberately use this opportunity to get close to the target? The little werewolf, Igor, was pleasantly surprised, as expected of a senior detective, rich in experience and unfathomable. Damn it, this guy just had a cheap hand. Yi Yen sighed silently. But it seemed to be a stroke of luck, right? Sorry, it didn't do it on purpose. It's usually very obedient. Look, even if you stepped on it, it wasn't angry. The wound wasn't very deep, but the bleeding wasn't little either. But it wasn't a big problem. After washing the wound with hydrogen peroxide, it could be simply bandaged. Well, Uncle, why don't you go to the hospital to get a rabies vaccine later? Bibi thought at this moment and said, Come back with the list later, I'll pay you back. This dog didn't get a shot? Sir Ma asked while enduring the pain. Bibi said, I picked it up a few days ago. It doesn't look like an owner, so I don't know if it's been given a shot. Why don't you go for a checkup? Sir Ma asked. Then he asked. Bibi said casually, It's not a good time in the city these days, so I want to go out later. Uncle, it's bandaged, how do you feel? Sir Ma looked at the treatment of the wound and nodded. It's pretty good. The nurses in the hospital are almost like this. Little girl, have you studied before? I used to go to a medical school for a while. Medical school is pretty good. Sir Ma smiled and gossiped, but why do you work here? It's not easy to find a job. Bibi answered simply. Sir Ma didn't continue to ask. After looking at the bandaged arm, he said directly, Little girl, I have to go to the hospital to have a checkup. Uncle, go ahead. Bibi nodded. Bring the list next time, I'll pay for your medical expenses. Don't worry. Sir Ma shook his head and walked out of the door with a look of admitting that he was unlucky. But next time there would be an excuse to continue to approach the target. The mission was finally completed well. Sir Ma thought at this moment with satisfaction. Uncle, you forgot something. Bibi suddenly shouted at this moment. Sir Ma was stunned and subconsciously touched his pocket. What did I forget? I didn't. He subconsciously turned his head and instantly gasped, but saw Bibi with a sweet smile on her face had already appeared in front of him. Not only that, Bibi was holding a dagger in her hand, and the dagger was directly stabbing towards Ma Haud's waist at this moment. You forgot this thing. It fell out when the dog pounced on me just now. While holding the dagger in one hand, the girl's other hand picked up something at this moment. Ma Haud's ID card. At this moment, old Ma's expression was not only slightly shocked, but then he suddenly took a deep breath and directly grabbed Bei's wrist. Little girl, of all things, why do you have to use a knife? Bibi was stunned, but found that the dagger stabbed into Ma Haud's waist at this moment didn't really stab into his body. It seemed that it was blocked by something. Bulletproof vest. Bibi's pupils suddenly contracted, and then she immediately pulled back and kicked out her knee at the same time. At this moment, Sir Ma's legs were tightly clamped together, and instantly kicked Bibi's leg. He sneered, "Don't you know that my nickname was Deadly Scissors Kick?" Bang! Bibi casually picked up a small second-hand fan from the shelf, and directly smashed it on Ma Howd's head. Ma Howd was dizzy for a while, but at this moment, he saw a tall figure appear in front of him. It was the leader of ice cream pudding, Boss Jean. Boss Jean stretched out his hand and directly covered Ma Howd's mouth and nose with the handkerchief in his hand. After a few breaths of time, Sir Ma was already unconscious after the sound of falling to the ground. Bibi kicked Ma Howd on the ground, and couldn't help but frown. "Boss, we're exposed, we can't stay here. I'll tell them to evacuate." "It's too late." Boss Jean shook his head at this moment and turned around. At the door of the second-hand electrical appliance store, a cold-looking man welcomed at this moment. "Yi Yen. You really found this place, hyenas of the criminal police team." Boss Jean slowly sighed at this time, but secretly made a special gesture to Bibi behind his back. "You can't escape," Yi Yen said indifferently. Boss Jean looked at Ma Howd on the ground, and said expressionlessly, "Hostage? The pension is very generous." Yi Yen shrugged and said indifferently. Boss Jean smiled. "If so, you wouldn't have appeared at the first moment. You probably haven't had time to make a detailed deployment, maybe you're still at the stage of investigation." While speaking, Bibi had already put the dagger on the neck of the unconscious officer Ma, without saying a word. Yi Yen was silent for a moment and suddenly shook his head. "You won't hurt him. You haven't hurt any innocent people all this time, not even our people." "Who knows?" Boss Jean said indifferently. "We won't hurt him, maybe because we haven't reached the point where we need to hurt him, but it doesn't mean that we won't do such things. Do you want to bet?" "Bet on what?" Yi Yen chuckled. Boss Jean said, "Bet on whether we'll kill him or not. But before that, I want you to know one thing. That is, no matter what we bet on, there's nothing we can't lose." "That's really difficult." Yi Yen sighed slowly. "According to international practice, how about I be the hostage?" While speaking, Yi Yen took off his windbreaker and threw it on the ground. At the same time, he took off his equipment one by one and raised his hand. "Why not the two of you together?" Boss Jean sneered. Boss Jean swung his arm, and a telescopic rod instantly appeared in his palm. The telescopic rod was accompanied by the crackling sound of electric current. He held the telescopic rod and directly swung it at Yi Yen. At this moment, a metal ball was suddenly thrown from behind Yi Yen. It suddenly opened in midair, and then a strong white light instantly filled the entire electrical appliance shop. At the same time, gunshots rang out, accompanied by several different shouts. Under the strong white light, the interior of the electrical appliance shop seemed to have become a chaotic world. "Master Yi." The little werewolf's voice rang in his ears, and Yi Yen exhaled heavily. At this moment, they were hiding outside the shop. Old Ma had been dragged out by Yi Yen. Bang! In an instant, there was a loud noise coming from the electrical appliance shop. It exploded. The force of the impact directly swept Yi Yen and the others away. So ruthless. Yi Yen climbed up awkwardly, immediately took out the walkie-talkie, and decisively ordered, "Action!" They shouldn't have escaped far. This time, the action team organized to capture ice cream pudding naturally didn't only consist of Yi Yen and the little werewolf. The whole action team had more than 10 people, and after receiving the email of Boss Jin's hiding place, they had already begun to deploy. "Master Yi, it's a busy city outside. We can't care so much." Yi Yen shook his head at this time, and immediately began to command the actions of his subordinates. The situation outside was reported one by one. A target found in the 2nd position. A suspected target in the 5th position. The 3rd position. It seemed that the members of Ice Cream Pudding had split up and were planning to escape on their own. Under the decorated archway of the village in the city across the road, A public trash can and a manhole cover suddenly exploded. At the same time, a water tank on a private house suddenly exploded, instantly splashing water everywhere. The passers-by were all shocked and scrambled in all directions. "Mr. Lawrence, take Jean Zay and hide first, I'll distract those guys." The one who spoke was Lawrence, who was in charge of weapon support in the team. Whether it was the temporary explosions or the RPGs that Mr. Jean used to attack the hotel where the Transcendent representatives were staying, they were all the work of this master of explosives. At this time, Lawrence directly took off Mr. Jin's coat and hat, put them on, and quickly blended into the crowd. Bibi's face was slightly pale, and he glanced at Mr. Jean. At this time, a palm-long dagger was stuck in Mr. Jin's abdomen, or rather, a flying dagger. It was the hand of the criminal police who came later. When he raised his hand, the flying dagger shot out like a bullet. This dagger was shot at him, but it was directly blocked by Mr. Jean. "You go first. I'll find a place to hide by myself." Mr. Jean covered his wound, but it was bleeding non-stop. "No, I'll go with you," Bibi quickly said. "I know where we should hide for now." "You can't go." Mr. Jean seemed to know Bibi's plan, and he frowned and stopped him. "It's too late." Bibi shook his head and waved the phone in his hand. Mr. Jean was startled. On the chaotic street, a pale-faced female worker was carefully walking over. "Nan Xiaonan." "Bibi, Mr. Jean, what are you doing?" "Sister Xiaonan. Help us." F***CK, what's going on? Nan Xiaonan began to doubt her life. Was this also arranged by the Red Queen? How did she do it? The witch of the academies in her subworld had many questions at this time. Chapter 2035. Candles, Scissors, Needle and Thread. Bebe took out the needle and thread herself. She seemed to carry a needle and thread bag with her everywhere. Nan Xiaonan glanced at it. It seemed to be medical? She was like an ordinary female worker who had encountered such a situation. Her face was pale, and she was at a loss. She stood aside without saying a word. Other than staring blankly at all this, she didn't know what to do at all. The wound has been treated. Fortunately, this thing didn't open a blood channel. Otherwise, it would be troublesome. Clang! Bebe threw the blood-stained knife directly into a stainless steel plate. There were many blood-stained paper balls on the table. "Sister Xiaonan, can you please help me get some hot water? And a towel, it's best if it's clean." Bebe hurriedly said. I'll go now." Nan Xiaonan nodded nervously and then staggered into the bathroom. At this moment, Bebe saw that Nan Xiaonan wasn't holding her phone in her hand, but had instead placed it on the table. He seemed to quietly heave a sigh of relief, and slowly put down the scissors in his hand. She had to do this. They couldn't go far with the injured Mr. Jean. They could only hide. However, she couldn't be sure that Sister Xiaonan, whom she had known for less than a week, wouldn't do something like an ordinary person. Mr. Jean looked quite weak after his wound was treated. Although Yi Yan's knife didn't open a blood channel, the wound was very deep. Perhaps it had hurt his internal organs? There was no condition in this rental house. Bebe couldn't do too many checks. "We need to leave here as soon as possible," Mr. Jean said in a low voice. "Every house in this village has a surveillance camera. We might have been exposed, don't worry. Bernard and Lawrence have already dealt with it. They won't find this place in a short time." Bebe said in a low voice. "They are still hiding outside. At least before they are all caught, the hyenas of the criminal police won't immediately consider this place. Don't underestimate the knife user." Mr. Jean smiled bitterly. "He has been biting us. He can find us every time. This time, it can be considered a formal confrontation. We almost lost when we went to watch." "Rest first." Bebe nodded. She stood up and walked quickly towards Nan Xiaonan. The conditions of this kind of rented house in the middle of the city were naturally not good. Although it was called a bathroom, it was actually separated by a small house. The bathroom was inside, and the outside was used as a small kitchen. When Bei walked over, he saw Nan Xiaonan boiling water. Her hands were holding onto a kitchen knife, and she seemed to be trembling non-stop. Sister Xiaonan. Huh? What happened? At this moment, Nan Xiaonan suddenly jumped in fright. She hurriedly took 2 steps back, and the kitchen knife in her hands naturally pointed towards Bei. She was shocked and quickly put down the kitchen knife. I'm just, it's okay, Sister Xiaonan. Bei shook his head. I won't hurt you. We'll leave immediately once boss's condition improves. So, Sister Xiaonan, can you temporarily cooperate with me? Nan Xiaonan opened her mouth, but didn't let down her guard. Bei took a step forward, and Nan Xiaonan took a step back. Her hands were trembling even more. However, Bei didn't intend to continue walking forward. Instead, he opened the zipper of his clothes, took out a small stack of cash, and slowly placed it on the stove. We came out in a hurry and I only brought this. If it's not enough, I'll think of another way. Really, we won't hurt you. You guys you haven't caught a single one? In the modified interview car, Yi Yan, who was commanding the small team to pursue the criminals, was slightly irritated. He felt like he had failed at the last minute. Continue chasing. They can't have gone far. Yi Yan frowned and said, one of them should be injured. They left in a hurry, so they definitely don't have any medicine on them. Pay more attention to the nearby pharmacies. As he spoke, Yi Yan temporarily turned off the communication and rubbed his forehead. Old Ma, are you okay? My head is still a little dizzy. It's all my fault. Ma Hao's face didn't look good. If he hadn't exposed himself, he said, I'm sorry, old Yi, I shouldn't have brought my ID. The ID is fake. Yi Yan shook his head and threw it casually. A book with some burn marks was thrown into Ma Hao's hand. He lowered his head and glanced at it. Fake, it's real, it's fake. The photo on the ID was actually a pink cartoon pig sticker. Officer Ma, I kept your ID for you when you were changing your clothes, did you forget? Look, it's still with me. The little werewolf quickly waved her hand. This. Sir Ma couldn't help but open his mouth and said subconsciously, this little girl looks like a gentle person, but she's actually so ruthless. She dared to use a fake ID to trick me, and even stabbed me with a knife? If I wasn't wearing a vest, she'd be crazy. Even if you weren't wearing a vest, you wouldn't die. At most, you'd only get some superficial wounds. Yi Yan shook his head and tossed him a dagger. This is the dagger that was found at the scene, the one that stabbed you. Sir Ma grabbed it and took a look. Immediately, he seemed to have discovered something. His finger pressed a button on the dagger, and then he pinched the tip of the dagger and pushed it inwards. The tip of the dagger was pushed in instantly. It's a spring. Ma Hao couldn't help but smile bitterly and shook his head. I didn't lose unjustly this time. Yi Yan stared at the map on the screen and muttered to himself, Jean Zhe, where are you hiding? Terrorist organization, revenge. Ice cream pudding, attack. Nan Xiaonan's expression kept changing while listening to Bibi's narration, until the end. Bibi stopped and looked at Nan Xiaonan quietly. She knew that for an ordinary girl working in a village in the city, these were things that needed time to digest. Why are you telling me these things? Nan Xiaonan finally asked hesitantly. Because. Bibi stared at Nan Xiaonan's eyes and said slowly, Sister Xiaonan, you're the same as us. How can I be the same as you? Nan Xiaonan reacted fiercely. I'm just an ordinary person working here. I don't want to get into trouble. Sister Xiaonan, Bibi said seriously, do you hate? Do you hate those extraordinary powers that took away your life? Do you hate that unknown creature that caused your fiancé to fall off the cliff and die? No, I don't hate. Nan Xiaonan's face turned pale, and she said in a frightened expression, How could you? We've investigated you. Bibi said indifferently, We've investigated your birth and all your past information. I hope you don't mind. We're opening a shop here, so we have to be very careful. Therefore, we'll investigate anyone who comes in contact with you very carefully. Nan Xiaonan was silent. Bibi didn't press her and quieted down. After a while, Nan Xiaonan said nervously, I'll get you something to eat. But there's only noodles. I didn't have time to buy groceries today. It's been hard on you, Sister Xiaonan. Bibi nodded, but he kept Nan Xiaonan's phone. Nan Xiaonan didn't say anything, and quickly hid in the small kitchen. Boss Jean didn't say anything, as if he had fallen asleep. But now, he slowly opened his eyes. Is there any news from them? No, Bibi said quickly. No news is good news. Okay. Boss Jean nodded and closed his eyes again. Soon, the noodles were ready. It was clear broth noodle soup. There were some vegetables floating on the broth and eggs. There seemed to be only one egg, and it was divided into 2 portions. Bibi directly ate it, and didn't dislike it at all. He ate it up directly, but Boss Jean didn't wake up. Is Boss Jean better? Nan Xiaonan asked in a low voice. She sat far away, leaning against the corner of the wall. His internal organs shouldn't be hurt. Bibi glanced at him, but the wound won't heal so quickly. After all, we're just ordinary people. There was silence. Nan Xiaonan broke the silence. Do you want to drink something? There's some in the small fridge. Sister Xiaonan, if you don't want to talk, take a rest. Bibi said in a low voice. Don't force yourself, we'll be quiet and stay quiet. Nan Xiaonan nodded silently. Then, she picked up a blanket and wrapped it around her body and hugged a pillow. Then, her whole body curled up like that. Bibi turned on his mobile phone and TV, probably to pay attention to the news outside. Nan Xiaonan was still thinking about the next step. Although she didn't know how the hiding place of this group of people was exposed, and now they were scattered in all directions. But there was no doubt that her relationship with this group seemed to have a breakthrough. But what was the next step after this progress? Nan Xiaonan hadn't figured out the problem of the Uki. She contacted Boss Jin's team based on the hint given by Miss Servant Girl. In fact, if she hadn't cheated and directly created the Great Clear Pill, she might not have known Boss Jean and Bibi. No, she might not have known their existence. However, since the future boss and lady boss knew that she had the ability of star creation, they should have guessed that she cheated. In other words, this wasn't cheating, but was tacitly allowed. Nan Xiaonan was sure that it was the future boss, Mr. Luo, who wanted to contact Boss Jean and his team. Join them, become a member of this revenge group, and then help them to take revenge against extraordinary powers? Was it really that simple? If it was that simple, there was no need to beat around the bush and only give her a hint of a pill, right? And the key, she subconsciously played with the key that was hanging on her body. Is this key very important? Bibi's voice suddenly sounded. Nan Xiaonan looked up and saw that Bei Bei had unknowingly turned to look at her. Nan Xiaonan thought for a while, then lowered her head and said faintly, This is the key to the place where I used to live. The place where you used to live? Bibi was startled. Nan Xiaonan nodded, and her voice became softer. I always felt that he would come back, so I kept it. We had talked with the landlord about buying that place, and it would be our new house after we got married. Am I stupid? But what's the use of it? I didn't dare to go back even once. I see. Bibi nodded silently. At this moment Mr. Jean suddenly woke up and coughed twice to break the silence between them. Bibi, I want to eat something. Okay, I'll help you. Bibi hurriedly carried the noodle soup to Mr. Jean and fed him carefully. Nan Xiaonan didn't say anything and continued to pretend that she was invisible, curling up in the corner. Of course, the origin of the Uki wasn't this. She had made this up before and wanted to find a suitable time to say it inadvertently, so that she could directly give the other party a critical hit and get closer to Mr. Jean and his team. But she didn't expect it to be at this moment. As for the so-called new house, it also existed, and it had been arranged long before she came to the village in the city. But the effect seemed to be quite good now. At least she could feel that Bibi's gaze had become much gentler. As for deceiving people's feelings, for a witch who had lived until the end of the world, schemes, scams, lies, and even crimes were already commonplace. Naturally, she didn't feel guilty about it. After all, the group of people she was facing was just a group of mortals who had survived with hatred for extraordinary powers. What made her different was that she was a void traveler who stood at the pinnacle of extraordinary powers. Even if she laughed and joked around, it was a fundamental view of mortals that had solidified in the hearts of all void champions. But she couldn't help but think about the intentions of her future boss. At this moment, Mr. Jean seemed to be whispering something in Bibi's ear. Nan Xiaonan didn't hear it clearly, but she saw that Bibi's face revealed hesitation, as if he wanted to argue about something. However, under Mr. Jin's gaze, Bibi gradually gave up resisting, and nodded somewhat unwillingly. After that, Bibi silently looked at Nan Xiaonan, and without saying anything, he picked up the things and directly walked out of the door. He opened the door, walked out, and closed the door. What is Bibi doing? Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but ask nervously. I asked her to do something, Mr. Jean said expressionlessly as he looked at Nan Xiaonan. Nan Xiaonan gulped and braced herself to say, She's not afraid that I'll do something? You can do something, Mr. Jean said casually. Mr. Jean said casually, in my opinion, the most important thing you should do now is to tie me up and inform the police. You'll be safer this way. Trust me, even if you do this, Bei and the others won't take revenge on you, let alone hurt you. Are you stupid? Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but be startled. Mr. Jean said casually, we're very stupid to begin with. What we want to do is something that won't succeed. Then why are you doing it? Nan Xiaonan didn't understand. Mr. Jean only looked deeply at Nan Xiaonan and slowly said, the noodles you make taste very good. Nan Xiaonan slowly exhaled and then glared at him. After all, I received money. Mr. Jean smiled. Nan Xiaonan realized that this was the first time she saw this man smile. And it wasn't very good-looking, and it was even a little fierce. Chapter 2036. Rain and thunder. But this was a natural phenomenon. Perhaps it was because they had seen too many weather changes caused by supernatural forces recently. When they realized that this was just an ordinary thunderstorm, they were a little unaccustomed to it. Pa! The sound of the light switch was heard in the room. Then the darkness of the thunderstorm was dispelled. Nan Xiaonan stood by the window, looking outside blankly. No one knew what she was thinking. Bei seems to have been out for a long time. Nan Xiaonan suddenly said in a low voice. More than an hour. In fact, it was not a long time. But for people who had been waiting, even 1 minute was too long. Mr. Jean just responded casually. He looked very tired, and his face still didn't look good. Do you want to drink some water? I'll pour it for you. Nan Xiaonan asked tentatively. Mr. Jean nodded without hesitation. Nan Xiaonan hurriedly poured a cup of warm water for him. After a moment of hesitation, she chose to help Mr. Jean up. The wound on your forehead? Nan Xiaonan asked in surprise. In fact, she had seen the wound long ago when Bei brought Mr. Jean in. Nan Xiaonan also knew why Mr. Jean always wore a hat, to cover the wound on his forehead. This wound looked like it was caused by some kind of claw, but from Nan Xiaonan's experience it was more like it was caused by some kind of sharp claw. The sharp claw had directly grabbed the head. The sharp claw even pierced into the skull. The first transcendent being I killed was a vampire. At this time, Boss Jean glanced at Nan Xiaonan and suddenly said, At that time, I only had Lawrence by my side. Although the two of us made a lot of plans, in the end, we were easily beaten to the ground by the other side. He said calmly. Then the vampire wanted to torture me, so I relaxed. Boss Jean shrugged. I stuffed a grenade directly into its mouth, and finally pierced its heart with a wooden nail. I don't know the effect of the wooden nail or the power of the grenade. Anyway, it died. The wound was caused at that time. Nan Xiaonan asked subconsciously. Mr. Jean didn't answer. He just gazed at her and moved his body to make himself more comfortable, saying slowly, "If you have any questions, just ask. But you should consider whether you should know these things. As an ordinary person, your life may be affected because of this." Nan Xiaonan thought for a while, taking 2 Corona bottles from the fridge. She sat cross-legged beside Mr. Jean and opened the bottle cap. "Drink some? I won't tell Bebe." Mr. Jean smiled and didn't refuse. "Who died?" Nan Xiaonan suddenly asked. Mr. Jean looked at her. Nan Xiaonan lowered her head and touched the bottle as she faintly said, "If it wasn't someone important, they wouldn't be that crazy." "My fiancé," Mr. Jean said softly, "and our unborn child." The 2 non-human creatures fought for some reason, so she was knocked into a pile of flesh and blood in front of me. Nan Xiaonan hugged her knees and said faintly, "Have you ever thought that maybe your fiancé doesn't want you to take revenge but only wants you to live well? People with hatred don't live well." Mr. Jean closed his eyes. They don't want to live well. There were some things that, once remembered, would never be forgotten for the rest of their lives. We are forgetful, but we also have good memories. Nan Xiaonan smiled bitterly. "But what can you do with just the few of you? Take revenge on all the supernatural forces in the world? Don't be silly. You saw the power conference just now. It's not a power that mortals can resist. That vampire creature you killed the first time was probably the lowest level among these extraordinary creatures, or even the worst of them." Mr. Jean opened his eyes and looked at her. He asked curiously, "Then, do you still plan to go back?" "Go back to where?" Nan Xiaonan asked subconsciously. Mr. Jean said, "The house that can be opened with this key." Nan Xiaonan suddenly realized that she didn't think about how to answer this question. She knew that there was a flaw in the plot she designed. "I don't know. Perhaps this was the best and most suitable answer. We don't know what we can do and how far we can go." Mr. Jean said in a low voice, "But if we don't do something, what can we do?" The topic suddenly came to an end, under the rapid sound of thunder. Then, someone knocked on the door of the rented house. Mr. Jin's eyes focused in an instant, and his whole body seemed to be tense. Nan Xiaonan saw something in Mr. Jean that only veterans who had experienced the battlefield would have. "Maybe Bebe is back. I'll go and take a look." Nan Xiaonan took a deep breath and said, "It can't be Bebe." Mr. Jean shook his head and stood up with difficulty. At the same time, he held the blood-stained knife in his hand. "Wait, let me do it." Nan Xiaonan hurriedly stood up and supported him. "I ordered some water. Maybe he's here to deliver it." Mr. Jean nodded, but he also walked to the door and hid behind it. Nan Xiaonan looked out through the door hole, but didn't see anyone outside. But the door was still knocked by something. She couldn't help frowning. She tried to open a small gap in the door. When she was about to look out, she saw a paw coming in from the bottom of the door. Nan Xiaonan gasped. "Paw?" She was brave enough to open the door, but what she saw was a wet pastoral dog squatting in front of the door. "This guy is quite a character." Nan Xiaonan tried to feed it. But the dog was indifferent. Since it entered the door, it directly shrank in the corner. This was a stray dog that Mr. Jean picked up a few days ago. She didn't know how it found this place. But it seemed that if it wasn't for shelter from the rain, this guy wouldn't have bothered to find this place. Dogs had a very keen sense of smell. The village in the city was only a short distance away from Mr. Jin's electronics store. Theoretically, it was not impossible for this pastoral dog to find this place. Mr. Jean seemed to be very curious that this stray dog could find this place. After looking at it for a while, he retracted his gaze and said coldly, "It may also be a non-human creature." Nan Xiaonan said, "How can it be? This is the city of abstinence. Theoretically, anything can happen here." Mr. Jean shook his head. "Who knows? Let it stay here for the time being. Bebe likes it very much." "Oh no, they're here." "Who?" Nan Xiaonan was shocked subconsciously. At this time, Boss Jean leaned close to the window and opened the curtains slightly. In the dense rain, he stared at the situation on the street below. "Who's here?" Nan Xiaonan asked with a trace of nervousness. Mr. Jean didn't speak. He walked quickly to the door, put his ear on the door, closed his eyes, and held his breath to listen to something. "Sure enough, they're here." Are they the people who caught you?" Nan Xiaonan asked in a trembling voice. Then she had an idea. "This dog brought them here?" Mr. Jean nodded. "These guys have been chasing me for a long time. One of them is a very formidable opponent." What should we do?" Nan Xiaonan panicked. "Then you should go quickly." "It's too late." Mr. Jean shook his head. Then he looked at the illusion in the rental house and frowned. The environment in this rental house was too shabby. There weren't many usable electrical appliances. Even things like microwave ovens and gas cylinders were not available. Induction cookers were sold from the electrical appliance store he used as a cover. Mr. Jean shook his head. It seemed that the only way out was to fight to the death. At this time, Nan Xiaonan suddenly walked in front of Boss Jean, grabbed his wrist that was holding the knife, and put the knife on her neck. That's how TV plays." Nan Xiaonan trembled. Is it useful?" She gasped for breath. She looked so nervous that her heart was about to jump out. The moment the door was broken, a black shadow suddenly rushed out. In the narrow corridor, a few gunshots suddenly rang out, followed by screams. A dog suddenly rushed out and leaped into the corridor, pouncing on 4 or 5 men in black suits at the same time, throwing them to the ground. At the exit downstairs, a man in black hurriedly retreated, but at this time, he directly knelt on the ground and threw himself into the rain puddle. There was already a bleeding bullet hole in the thigh of the man in black. In the dense rain, the action team led by Yi Yan had completely blocked all the passages. Yi Yan stared at the exit. At this time, Mr. Kim was slowly walking out with a woman in his arms. "I need a car." Mr. Jin's voice suddenly rang out, and then he immediately took the hostage and hid in the corridor. "Also, withdraw your snipers, 3 minutes. Master Yi, we don't have the space to snipe. He's too cunning." Listening to the voice of the werewolf from the bone conduction Bluetooth headset, Yi Yan instantly narrowed his eyes. Unfortunately, Old Ma was not here at the moment, otherwise, he could always find a suitable place to shoot. This guy was not good at fighting, and he was muddle-headed in handling cases. Although he was hot-blooded, his shooting was really accurate. The explosion of the electrical appliance store had a big impact and had already alarmed the local police. Therefore, Old Ma had to personally coordinate. Now, there were at least a dozen police cars outside the village. They had to evacuate the crowd and were very busy. Bang! At this moment, Mr. Jean, who was hiding in the corridor, suddenly fired again, directly hitting the sign of a shop in front of him. It seemed to be a warning. "Organization, what should we do?" Another member of the arrest team frowned and asked at this time. "First prepare a car with a tracker, and temporarily withdraw the gunman." Yi Yan quickly said, "First, ensure the safety of the hostage." "The hostage, maybe she's also one of them?" The subordinate hesitated and said. Although this man from Hua was very capable, sometimes his ideas conflicted with theirs. Unfortunately, he was the team leader. "What if she's not?" Yi Yan snorted coldly at this time. "Did you forget that the headquarters had issued a strict order yesterday that we must not cause any casualties in the city of abstinence? Do you want that person to visit the headquarters of the United Nations directly? We're not transcendents." The subordinate still wanted to argue, but when he thought of the horror of that person, he suddenly became angry. "Oh, this damn place! How can there be such a horrible guy in the world?" But he still prepared to leave while cursing. Yi Yan took a deep breath and glanced around. Finally, he suddenly locked his eyes on an electric car that was charging next to the shop next door. "Give me another tracker." Soon after, a car slowly drove into the alley of the village. At the same time, at the request of Mr. Jean, the people of the action team withdrew one by one. They just watched from a distance with binoculars. At the same time, the gunmen had also evacuated here, but the scope was still locked here. However, the construction of the village was uneven, and there were not many favorable shooting conditions. The gunman's vision was still greatly hindered. "Master Yi, it's out. Why is it a woman?" He saw a woman with her hands raised high in the air. She seemed to be extremely frightened. She looked back with every step she took, and her whole body was trembling as she slowly approached the prepared car in the rain. The rain wet the woman's face and hair, and her appearance couldn't be seen clearly. "Jean Zhe, this bastard, is really careful." Yi Yan exhaled heavily and could only continue to observe through the binoculars. The woman circled the car a few times and still crouched down from time to time, checking the car's surroundings and chassis. Finally, she succeeded in pulling out something from the car. "Don't worry, Master Yi. He won't think that we put a sleeping gas device in the car," the little werewolf said quickly. "As long as he drives away, he won't be able to get away." But at this moment, a strong white light suddenly appeared in front of the rental house, covering everything. After a while, the car suddenly rushed out from the main road of the village. The crazy car stopped on both sides of the road one after another, and finally rushed out of the road, sticking to the wall of the shop. Accompanied by a loud noise, the car finally hit the pier of the pedestrian bridge on the road. The people of the action team, as well as the local police who were on guard outside, surrounded the car at this time. They saw that the car that crashed the front of the car was smoking, but there was no movement for a long time. Yi Yan frowned and took another tablet. On the tablet, a red dot was moving quickly on the map of the village. "Leader Yi, there's no one in the car." It rushed out with a fixed accelerator. A team member who was investigating at this time sent a message to him loudly. "I know." Yi Yan nodded. "I know where he went. Follow me." In the rain, a man, a woman, and a dog were speeding on an electric scooter. Obviously, this was not romantic at all. Chapter 2037. The rain stopped, but the sky was still cloudy. Several police cars stopped outside a square. Yi Yan and Sir Ma got out of the car together, followed by a werewolf and 2 local policemen. They walked to an electric scooter. Without saying anything, Yi Yan put his hand under the car to feel for something. After a while, a finger-sized instrument escaped. "How is it? Were we discovered?" Ma Howd asked quickly. "It's hard to say." Yi Yan shook his head. "Maybe we were discovered, or maybe because the car ran out of power. The battery is still warm. They should have left not long ago." Old Ma tried to run the electric scooter, but there was not much power left. It seemed that the scooter could not be ridden anymore. "There are several cars over there. Check the camera, maybe they have captured something." Yi Yan raised his hand and pointed to the front. The werewolf quickly followed with his men. Sir Ma could not help but be angry at this time. "We followed that evil dog to his hiding place and almost caught him. I'm not reconciled to this. I've chased them for so long and haven't caught them yet. Should I commit suicide?" Yi Yan laughed coldly. "You don't seem to care at all?" Old Ma could not help but frown. Apart from Yi Yan's parents, he was one of the few people who knew Yi Yan the best. "Mr. Jean took my flying dagger," Yi Yan suddenly said in a low voice. "You?" Sir Ma suddenly opened his eyes wide. "It's on the knife too?" Yi Yan shook his head gently, then slightly moved his chin, pointing to the position of the action team led by him. "Every time, he could discover us in advance and escape. It's not like he has unreasonable extraordinary power." A cold light flashed in Yi Yan's eyes. "Old Ma, do you think there are so many coincidences in the world? We'll search separately later." Yi Yan said indifferently, "I'll be with you." Ma Howd nodded silently. It was a cargo truck. The kind of small cargo truck that had been painted with the words cargo truck on it. Nan Xiaonan was here. Mr. Jean was also here. Dog was also here. The truck suddenly appeared on the road. Then, Mr. Jean threw the electric scooter to the side of the square. Then, he took Nan Xiaonan and boarded the small container of the truck. Along the way, Nan Xiaonan was wringing the clothes on her body with a pale face. The dog. After the dog shook its body crazily, it lay down and didn't move, looking like it had nothing to live for. Is the driver your companion? Nan Xiaonan at this time. No. Mr. Jean shook his head and said expressionlessly, It's just a guy with bad intentions. But we got in his car? Let's find a place, Mr. Jean said. Mr. Jean said slowly, After you leave, you should find a place to hide. You can come out after a while. If the police find you, you can tell them that we imprisoned you and found a chance to escape. Nan Xiaonan didn't say anything. Only the sound of the moving truck echoed in the box. It was especially loud. Suddenly, she seemed to have made a decision. She gritted her teeth. Can I follow you? Mr. Jean didn't answer at once, just looked at her for a long time, then said slowly, Impulsive? I don't know. Nan Xiaonan shook her head with a bitter smile. Maybe? Then you shouldn't follow us. Mr. Jean shook his head. Get off. Nan Xiaonan took a deep breath and stared at Mr. Jean. I want to know, how can I continue to live? I want to see, what can you do? Human's will was a very strange thing. It might only take a moment to make a decision that would affect the whole life. They had experienced such a moment, so they came together to form the group called Ice Cream Pudding. Mr. Jean didn't answer Nan Xiaonan this time, but he didn't mention getting off. The car just drove like this, and the noise outside gradually decreased. It seemed that they had reached a remote place. In the end, Nan Xiaonan felt that she could use her extraordinary power. Outside the city of exclusion. This dog, she suddenly looked at the stray dog lying on the ground, and found that the dead dog was still motionless. The car finally drove into a farm-like place, and finally stopped in front of a small cargo hold in the farm. The driver was a guy wearing a cap, and the cap was very low. He even wore the uniform of a moving company. However, Nan Xiaonan noticed that this guy was wearing a black glove on one hand. He didn't look very old, and should be a young man, but this person didn't say anything. After getting off the car, he directly threw a small bottle to Mr. Jean, and then disappeared into the darkness ahead. The sky was completely dark. The light in the warehouse next to them suddenly turned on, and then the scroll was slowly pulled up, and then a figure quickly rushed out. It was Bei. Boss! Bei ran in front of Mr. Jean excitedly, and then looked at Nan Xiaonan with surprise, and said hesitantly, Sister Xiaonan. Let's go in first. Mr. Jean said softly, Is everyone here? Yes. In the cargo hold, Nan Xiaonan also saw the other members of the ice cream pudding organization. Although she knew that these people were hiding in the basement of the electrical appliance store through the Great Clear Pill, she had never seen them in person. However, these people didn't seem to reject Nan Xiaonan's arrival, except for a little surprise. In the team, 2 women, except for Bei, even showed a trace of kindness to Nan Xiaonan. Drink some hot tea, it will drive away the cold. Thank you. Nan Xiaonan silently took a cup of hot tea from the woman named Guo. At this time, she was wrapped in a blanket, sitting in the corner of the warehouse. Besides sizing up Guo in front of her, she also looked around the warehouse. The warehouse was 3 stories high, and it was very spacious. However, there seemed to be a huge box in the middle. The box was completely covered with a black cloth, and she couldn't see what was inside. At this time, everyone, including Mr. Jean, surrounded the huge box, setting up something. Nan Xiaonan even saw the tools for filming. You're welcome. Guo smiled. If you're hungry, there's some food over there, you can eat it yourself. She didn't say much, and soon returned to the team, and Mr. Jean and the others started to work together. Nan Xiaonan seemed to have nothing to do. These people obviously didn't avoid her presence at this time. Bei seemed to have finished her work, and then came to Nan Xiaonan's side, squatting in front of her. Sister Xiaonan, aren't you afraid? Nan Xiaonan opened her mouth subconsciously. She even slightly withdrew her legs, afraid? What we're going to do next may be very scary. What are you going to do next? Bei only smiled, and then suddenly squeezed to Nan Xiaonan's side, sitting down next to her. Nan Xiaonan didn't dare to move. Did the boss tell you about him? A little. Nan Xiaonan nodded. Sister Xiaonan, do you want to know about me? Bei looked at her and asked, my story? No, I don't, can I? Nan Xiaonan swallowed her saliva, and said with a trembling voice. Bei suddenly laughed, and waved her hand, patting Nan Xiaonan's shoulder vigorously. This seemed to be a very funny thing, and even made her laugh until tears came out of her eyes. Is it really that funny? Bei took a deep breath and didn't say anything. She just curled up, hugged her knees, and silently looked at the busy people in front of her. She's my only family, she said softly. My parents are long gone, and my grandmother raised me single-handedly. Her body wasn't good, and when I was young, I wanted to be a doctor when I grew up, and cure her body. Bei, that day, I received a letter of acceptance from the medical school. I ran all the way home, and I didn't tell anyone. I just wanted to tell her the news as soon as possible. With a stiff smile, she said. Then I opened the door. What happened next? By the way, I saw a man. He was also smiling. That was the scariest smile I have ever seen. It was like the creepy smile you see in horror movies. Then, don't say any more. She hugged her tightly and stroked her head, saying softly, don't say any more. Okay. Bei replied softly. After a while, Bei seemed to have fallen asleep in Nan Xiaonan's arms. At some point, Mr. Jean walked over, and so did Chen Guo, who had delivered hot tea to Nan Xiaonan. Then, there was another dark-skinned woman called Maeve. There was also Lawrence, and a bearded man called Bernard. The youngest among them should be Bei. Nan Xiaonan realized that Mr. Jean and the others were looking at Bei as if they were looking at their own daughter, sister, family. Suddenly, Mr. Jean looked at Maeve and nodded. Thus, under Nan Xiaonan's astonished gaze, Maeve went directly in front of Bei. Maeve took out a syringe and injected it into Bei's arm. Bei seemed to feel something, and her eyelids trembled for a moment, but she quickly calmed down. Nan Xiaonan was a little frightened. Maeve smiled and said, it's just a sedative. Bei's mind is not very stable, so it's very difficult for her to fall asleep. But there's no need for an injection. Nan Xiaonan frowned, and immediately seemed to have thought of something. What are you doing? What are you doing behind her back? Mr. Jean suddenly said, can we ask you to do us a favor? Master Yi, the signal has stopped for a long time. I wonder if we've been discovered? The car was Sir Ma's personal car, a family SUV, and it was currently speeding on the rural road outside the city of Exclusion. The red dot on the map was getting closer and closer, and it wouldn't take long for them to reach it. We'll know when we get there, Yi Yan said quickly. But at this moment, his other work phone rang. At the same time, Sir Ma's phone also rang. Both of them looked at each other suspiciously, and they seemed to have a bad feeling. They picked up the phone at the same time, and then their expressions changed slightly at the same time. What happened? Little Werewolf couldn't help but worry. Watch the live broadcast, Yi Yan and Old Ma said at the same time. Watch the live broadcast. Sister Long, stop playing games. What live broadcast? Kelowna's Shinryu was startled at this moment. She hadn't calmed down yet, and now she just wanted to be a gaming nerd. The game was still in the Evil Dragon era version, and the frontline attack team still hadn't reached the level of the Evil Dragon. While playing, Kelowna's Shinryu felt a deep sense of malice. In the game, a group of players were trying their best to defeat the version boss, but in the real world, just 2 days ago, she had already been defeated by hundreds of transcendents. Damn it! Why is there such a plot in and out of the game? It's too much of a bully. Hey, stop playing. Come quickly. Little Butterfly rushed to Long Shirua's side, grabbed her hand, and pulled her up from the chair, all the way to the living room downstairs. At this moment, Chichikamaya and the others had already gathered in front of the TV. They just nodded at Long Shirua's arrival as a greeting. Long Shirua subconsciously looked at the screen. On the screen, there was a black background, and in front of the black background stood a man wearing a hat. What is this for, consultant? Consultant Firecloud, look quickly. I already know. Tower Master, I know. Popcorn. Cola. Give me this cheap happiness. Father Stella, your injury hasn't healed yet. Bullshit. I'm an invincible priest. Which country's live broadcast is this? How can it invade our channel? Take it down. Take it down. This won't do. This is the signal of a satellite. It's a satellite. On the screen, the man with a hat was standing in front of a black screen. He just stood there, and time passed slowly but faithfully. Finally, the man slowly opened his mouth. My name is Jean Zhe. Now I want to do something. As he spoke, the man named Jean Zhe, Boss Jean, suddenly pulled something. In an instant, the black curtain behind him fell down. What was covered by this black curtain was actually an incomparably huge metal cage. At this moment, in this metal cage, there was a man with wounds all over his body, and only half of his back had a grayish-black wing. His arm was like a beast's claw. This man trapped in the cage was now like a sinner, pulled by the iron chains on the floor, and could only kneel on the ground. I want to execute it. Mr. Jin's voice slowly sounded in every corner of the world. Without the help of any extraordinary power, this was the power of human technology. Chapter 2038. There was no live broadcast of the Transcendent Summit today. The exciting and blood-boiling strength competition had also come to an end. Although there were related programs on all the major channels, the daily program rotation had temporarily resumed for the next 2 days. Most of the programs were selectively not watched. Honey, come and see. What is this? Not all the channels showed the scene that happened in the small warehouse of the farm. Only a few fixed channels could be watched. Even so, the news spread at an extremely fast speed. People looked at the man who called himself Jean Zhe in front of the camera. They looked at the imprisoned transcendent being in the huge cage. When they heard the word execution, they couldn't help but gasp. In the warehouse of the farm, Mr. Jean slowly opened the gate of the huge cage and walked in alone. There was even a sharp machete in his hand at this moment. Mr. Jean walked in front of the transcendent being whose wings were broken and whose body was full of terrifying wounds. Instantly, the male transcendent being roared in anger. The man opened his mouth in an instant, revealing a mouthful of sharp teeth. His roar was transmitted through the transmission of the signal to everyone's ears in an instant. Some people were frightened and couldn't help but cover their eyes. Some people were excited. Their hearts were beating fast as they felt an unprecedented excitement. Mr. Jean didn't immediately cut the male transcendent being's neck with the machete. Instead, he held the machete above the transcendent being's neck. He slowly walked around the transcendent being. The sharp blade moved slowly along the skin of the transcendent being's neck. When the camera zoomed in, it could be clearly seen that there was a small cut on the transcendent being's neck. Blood oozed out from the cut. The transcendent being was even more furious now. The remaining half of his wings flapped crazily. He clenched his fists and tried to break free from the thick chains tied to the ground. Mr. Jean retreated to the edge of the cage and looked sideways at the camera. As you can see, this transcendent being is an orc that can transform into an eagle. This species has always existed in our world. They live by our side like ordinary people. A few months ago, in the midst of the sudden increase in supernatural events in the world, many things happened that caused us to deviate from our daily lives. Looking at the camera, Mr. Kim slowly took off his hat. The shocking wound on his forehead instantly appeared in front of the camera. As for me, it was during that period of time that I lost my fiancée. The reason I want to execute this transcendent being is because it is the murderer of my fiancée. Mr. Kim took a deep breath and his eyes suddenly turned cold. Like this, he killed my wife. At the same time, the signal on the screen was suddenly disturbed. What followed was a video clip that seemed to have been copied from the surveillance equipment. The sudden change from the scene of an execution to a surveillance video made people feel uncomfortable for a short moment. But after the initial discomfort, what people saw was indeed something that made their hair stand on end. The surveillance video was silent. The time in the bottom right corner of the video was ticking away. At this moment, a man and a woman were pushing a shopping cart out of the door of a medium-sized supermarket, walking toward the parking lot in front. The man took a step forward, seemingly to open the car door in advance. The woman slowly pushed the cart behind him. It was very clear that this woman was pregnant. She might be 6 months old, 7 months old, or even more. Suddenly, something seemed to appear in front of the surveillance camera. It was a black dot. The black dot was coming from the sky at a terrifying speed. It was getting closer and closer. Finally, the black shadow hit directly. No! No! In front of the screen, the people watching this scene instinctively exclaimed something. However, this was a record that would not stop because of people's exclamations. On the screen, a man with wings on his back and claws on his arms slowly stood up. His body was covered with flesh and blood. This was the male transcendent being who was riddled with scars and was imprisoned in the cage. At this moment, the male transcendent being in the video suddenly roared and then soared into the sky. Through the fixed line of sight of the surveillance camera and some fragmented shots, people could only guess that this male transcendent being was fighting with something at that time. They watched as the man, perhaps the woman's husband, Mr. Kim, lost his mind and knelt in a pile of flesh and blood. The video ended, and the scene of Mr. Kim's warehouse appeared in people's sight again. It was impossible for Mr. Kim to interact with all the audience. He just took a deep breath slowly. His face was pale and his voice was hoarse. There's no explanation. A person from a special department of the criminal police organization found me and gave me a fortune that I might not be able to earn in my life, asking me to forget this matter. They actually did it. This matter wasn't even reported. In the end, the only one left was me, the victim's family. There's only one reason why they spent so much money. That guy, this transcendent being, belongs to a special department of the criminal police organization that deals with transcendent beings. At that time, it was chasing another transcendent being. That's right. My wife and my unborn child died in such an accident. As the culprit, I didn't receive much punishment. In the SUV driving on the rural road, Officer Ma suddenly looked at his brother of many years and said in disbelief, "Old Yi, is this true?" Yi Yen didn't respond verbally, but just took a deep breath silently. "It's true," Ma Hao's voice trembled. He was too familiar with Yi Yen. He knew Yi Yen so well that Yi Yen would only act like this when he admitted it. "Damn it, you never told me?" "Officer Ma, calm down," the little werewolf said quickly. The little werewolf quickly said, "We only found out about this not long ago. At that time, we had been chasing Jean Zhe for a long time. Our headquarters. The situation is very complicated, so we won't tell them about some things." "Damn it!" Officer Ma punched the car window with his fist. Since he woke up and found out that the dagger that stabbed him was just a switchblade, his view of the ice cream pudding organization, even he himself didn't know. He felt that there had been some subtle changes in his view. Wait, this guy. What does he want to do? At this moment, Officer Ma held the mobile phone with both hands, his eyes wide open, and his breathing quickened uncontrollably. Yi Yan's eyes were fixed on the tablet in his hand, and his breathing seemed to be slightly disordered. Jean Zhe. He's asking for death. A bunch of keys was suddenly thrown from Mr. Jin's hand to the male transcendent being who was locked up. At the same time, the iron gate of the cage was slowly lowered. Only a bang was heard, and the iron gate was finally closed completely. Execution is also my execution. Jean Zay's voice slowly sounded. It's also my final revenge. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up like a beast. The male transcendent being looked at the keys that fell beside him, and his eyes instantly froze. After a moment of hesitation, the male transcendent being suddenly stretched out his hand to grab the keys on the ground. He even revealed a ferocious smile on his face. Jean Zay looked at him silently, but the machete in his hand was slightly trembling. Finally, the male transcendent being who had removed the chains made of special alloy slowly stood up. You could have killed me directly, but for this meaningless revenge, you actually let me go. You could have lived a good life, but you're just a woman. This is stupid. He let out an even more ferocious laugh, licking his sharp claws. I'll pay you back tenfold for the torture you've inflicted on me. Then, let's settle this once and for all. Mr. Jean took a deep breath, then immediately clenched the machete in his hands, rushed forward, jumped up, and chopped at the male transcendent being's head with the machete. Naive. Although his hands had suffered many injuries as a transcendent being, he still did not care about the violence of an ordinary person. With just a level 1 block, the male transcendent being not only dodged Mr. Jin's swift attack, but also directly swept Mr. Jin's body and sent him flying directly into the cage. However, Mr. Jin quickly crawled back up, spat out a mouthful of blood, and once again swung the machete at the male transcendent being. This time, the male transcendent being snorted coldly, and as fast as lightning, his claws directly grabbed Mr. Jin's hand that was holding the machete. The claw-like hand suddenly contracted, and firmly grasped Mr. Jin's hand. Mr. Jin let out a blood-curdling scream. He tried his best, but he still couldn't break free from the other party's claws. At this time, the male transcendent being directly punched Mr. Jin's chest, sending him flying again. This time, he crashed into the iron bars of the cage. This time, Mr. Jin, who had fallen to the ground, couldn't get up quickly. His legs even slipped on the floor, and he failed to stand up several times. Thick blood that seemed to be mixed with the fragments of his internal organs flowed out from the corner of his mouth, drawing a thin line of blood and drooping down. At this time, the male transcendent being had already walked over, stretched out his claws, and directly grabbed Mr. Jin's head, dragging him on the ground. He dragged Mr. Jin to the center of the cage, snatched Mr. Jin's machete, and then laughed, directly stabbing Mr. Jin's palm with the machete. What do you have to fight with me? What do you have to fight with me? You're just an ordinary person, a mortal. What do you have to fight with me? Trash. 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 The machete stabbed Mr. Jin's palm, arm, shoulder, and thigh. Once, twice. Blood dripped down, and at this time, through the signal, it was constantly spreading. This bloody and cruel scene was now impacting the hearts of humans. Enough, that's enough. He will die if this continues. That's enough. If I knew this would happen, I would have killed him directly. Why did I give him a chance? Such a cruel thing. Too stupid. Too stupid. It's not worth it at all. His wife is dead, his child is also dead, if it was me. This is transcendent, this is transcendent, this is… Stop. 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 This kind of power. Even if it is full of scars and seems to be in need of it, it is still so easy to kill us mortals. Don't take revenge, live. Isn't it good to live? In addition to those transcendent beings in the delegation, there are also cruel guys. Hurry up! Hurry up! This guy is going to be beaten to death. Damn it, hurry up! Officer Ma, this is the fastest. 5 minutes. No, 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Jean Zay is seeking death. Not only that, he also wants to let humans see the terrifying side of transcendent being. Yi Yen sighed softly, No matter how powerful the transcendent being is, the damage to the ground and the buildings, the shock it brings is not as intense as this. Instead, it will only bring more worship and yearning. Only direct injuries could make a person realize the true fear. Jinzei, is this your real revenge? Ah! Another tragic cry rang out. In the cage, Jinzei fell in a pool of blood. His chest rose and fell slightly, there were at least dozens of wounds on his body, but the male transcendent being obviously wanted to torture him and didn't really stab Mr. Jin's vital parts. I won't kill you immediately. The male transcendent being sneered. I'll catch those guys outside the cage and torture them to death in front of you one by one. You damn guy, you sneak attacked me, caught me, and tortured me for so long. You lowly human. He waved his saber, one of Mr. Jin's arms was instantly chopped off by the sharp blade. At the same time, the male transcendent being dug out one of Jinzei's eyeballs and bit it in his mouth. He bit it into pieces. Blood dripped down. It's over. This damn guy, he actually said this sentence in public, this is taboo. In front of the screen, the face of the Ice Tower Master of the Magician Association turned pale. This beautiful Ice Tower Master even bit her lip. Zhong Luoyue looked at the Ice Tower Master subconsciously. She knew what the Ice Tower Master was concerned about. The lowly human, perhaps this matter would eventually pass. Humans were forgetful, but some things, once planted, would never disappear. The seed of fear. Bastard. 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 That damned bastard. Kelowna Shinryu's extremely sharp roar suddenly sounded in the living room. She directly slammed the door and left. Many people felt cold all over as if they were hugging something. They hugged their own bodies and the people around them, looking at Jinzei whose eyeballs were dug out. That man who was lying in a pool of blood and was crazily beaten and tortured. It was a deserted street. It was a mirage-like world, the reflection of the world, the reflection of the world's will. In the center of the world, on the mirror-like huge land, a small figure was looking up at the sky expressionlessly. Administrator of 003, Araya. Fear projection successful, restricted rights holder requests no conflict, calculating the remaining life of the Terminator, countdown to the latest version of the restart plan. Year 63, September 27, 1923. 9 seconds, continue monitoring. Chapter 2039. The child's eyes were covered and he was brought back to the room. Or, for the sake of the child, they turned off the terrifying screen. They didn't know if it was because they were afraid or because they were worried that the child had been stimulated. They didn't know, they didn't know, they didn't know. Who is going to save this man? Police? Army? Where are our people? Can't we protect ourselves? Please save this poor man. I'm also a victim, but I didn't dare to say anything. I can feel the pain in Jinzei's heart because I've been in the same pain these days. If I can use my death in exchange for my family. No one knew if it was true or not, but in this chaotic sea of information, the voice turned into terrifying waves through the words. In the sea of information, monstrous waves were surging. Around the city of exclusion, in a county. This was already the best hotel in the county. At this time, in the best room of the hotel, a naked and beautiful woman was standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city. At the end of the woman's back, there was something like a wire. Like a tail, one end of it was connected to the network port of the room. The woman suddenly picked up a glass of red wine on the coffee table next to her. With a smile on her face, she closed her eyes as if she was listening to something. Or as if she was looking at something. She was the Queen of Information, the Red Queen who had a physical body after Nan Xiaon and Xing Chuang. We should have let the storm come more violently, she said softly, and the smile on her face became wider. It didn't look like a human smile. What's going on? Why can't we cut off the signal source? Didn't we already conquer the other party's control of the satellite? Damn it, if this live broadcast continues, we'll be pushed to the edge. In Eurasia, in the headquarters of the criminal police organization where Yi Yen was located, dozens of human intelligence personnel with the highest standards were sweating profusely. On the screen, the male supernatural creature with a ferocious face belonged to a mysterious department of this organization. In order to deal with the loose ends of this mysterious department, these dozens of high-level security personnel had to work overtime all year round. In fact, the information technology of humans was too advanced. Indeed, we've already removed the other party's control over the satellite, but just now, all the commands we reprogrammed were rendered ineffective. This is impossible. It's like the hands of God controlling all the data. At this moment, the dozens of computers in the control room suddenly started to spin wildly. At the same time, the screens that surrounded the entire room flickered on and off, showing countless security issues. The face of the supervisor, who was in charge of this place, changed drastically at this moment. What the hell happened? Our information is being leaked. What? In the outside world, there was a collision that felt like the undercurrent of the deep sea. However, in the cargo hold of the farm, it was unusually simple. It was a simple case of a transcendent being tormenting an ordinary human. Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but frown. Although this witch from the World Academy was used to seeing life and death, it didn't mean that she liked this kind of violent thing. Nan Xiaonan had killed a lot of people, so many that she couldn't even count how many people she had killed. But she was straightforward when it came to killing. Just a knife or a cannon, it was simple and time-saving. She always thought that torturing the opponent to death was the so-called cowardly. Are you just going to watch him like this? Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but look at Lawrence, who was holding the camera, and Bernard, who was silently watching all this happen. Bernard was still in the mood to knock on his shoulder. Maeve and Chenghua, one was sitting far away, making a cocktail for herself, absent-mindedly doing it. One of them was holding a photo in his hand, speechless. He will really die. Nan Xiaonan had no choice but to raise her voice. Suddenly, Bernard's fingers that were tapping on the keyboard stopped. He took off his glasses and leaned on the back of the chair, raising his head and letting out a long sigh. He suddenly said, "I don't know who is helping me. The effect now is dozens of times better than what I can do. Now the whole world is watching here." In the distance, Maeve suddenly came back to her senses, showing a smile on the corner of her mouth, drinking the cocktail in one gulp. She suddenly stood up and reached for a black pistol on the side of the table. She unlocked the safety and loaded it. "Everyone, what are you waiting for?" Maeve walked over with a gun. "Indeed." Chenghua gently kissed the photo, then put the photo in her collar, holding a machete, slowly stood up. Big Beard Bernard carried an assault rifle on his back and held a similar model in both hands. He went directly to the gate of the cage. "You are the same as Jean Zhe." In an instant, Nan Xiaonan realized something. At this time, her hands suddenly felt heavy. Indeed, Lawrence had directly put the camera equipment in her hands. At the same time, Lawrence's arms bulged as he forcibly lifted a Gatling gun and carried several rows of bullets on his back. "Remember what Boss Jean told you," Lawrence said in a low voice. "I'll leave the rest to you. Take care of Bibi." Saying this, Lawrence also quickly walked to the front of the gate. Chenghua pressed a button, and the gate opened little by little. At this time, Lawrence directly roared, holding the Gatling gun in his hands, only to see the bullets shooting out, directly hitting the male extraordinary life form's body. "Come, you monster!" Amidst the roar and the sound of the bullets, Lawrence walked step by step into the cage. The power of the bullets clearly made the male extraordinary life form apprehensive. He had no choice but to rely on his body's speed, like a cheetah, and began to run in the huge cage. "Just with you guys." The male extraordinary life form angrily roared, wanting to directly rush into the gate. However, when Chenghua was the last to enter the cage, the door was instantly closed. Facing the charging male extraordinary creature, everyone instantly scattered. The male extraordinary life form was furious. His two claws directly grabbed the cage. "This kind of trash can't trap me at all." Seeing that the male extraordinary life form was about to tear the iron cage apart, a terrifying electric current crazily drilled into the male extraordinary life form's body. At this time, the cage was actually filled with high-voltage electric current. Under the electric shock, the male extraordinary life form instantly let out a mournful scream. He had no choice but to quickly release his hands. The muscles all over his body were twitching. His eyes were red, as if he wanted to devour people. He looked at everyone in the cage. At this time, Bernard was saying something. On his collar there was a miniature wireless microphone. "Do you see, this is an extraordinary life form. Do you know how much time we spent in order to catch this guy? For an entire month, we practiced the technique more than 100 times before we finally managed to capture it. And this was under the premise that it didn't know that someone was targeting it. But even so, this extraordinary life form is probably only the lowest level among the extraordinary life forms. Compared to those powerful extraordinary people who appeared in the Power Conference, it may be like an ant. And us humans, facing such an ant, can only fight with our lives on the line. Do you see? It has the speed of a cheetah, the strength of a brown bear. It can also fly. But now it can't because half of its wings are broken. But it is still very powerful. A few bullets, dozens of bullets can't kill it at all." This was a relaxed, self-mocking tone, but it was incomparably clear through the ocean of information, transmitted to the ears of humans all over the world. "Maybe we can kill it. Or maybe it can kill all of us. Who knows?" Bernard said softly. "Anyway, I don't want to live anymore." As he spoke, Bernard suddenly took off the wireless microphone on his collar, threw it directly on the ground, stepped on it, and raised the assault rifle in his hand. A round of crazy shooting. But the high-speed bullets were still dodged by the male extraordinary life form. How could it have the speed of a cheetah? It clearly surpassed the speed of a cheetah. But on one side was Lawrence's Gatling gun, and on the other side was Bernard's assault rifle. The male extraordinary life form had no choice but to be suppressed by the terrifying firepower. The male extraordinary life form's expression became more and more crazy, as if he had transformed into a terrifying monster. And at this time, taking advantage of this short period of time, Maeve and Chen Guo directly dragged Mr. Kim, who was lying in a pool of blood, to the side. "Old Kim, are you dead?" Chen Guo directly asked. "Almost," Mr. Kim weakly replied. One arm was broken, dozens of deep wounds on his body, and a lot of his internal organs were probably ruptured. One of his eyes was dug out. If it was a normal person, even if they didn't die on the spot, they would have fallen into a coma not far from death. But he was still able to maintain a trace of consciousness. What a monstrous willpower! Chen Guo took a deep breath, nodded, and stood in front of Mr. Kim with a machete. "You finished the first half of the show. The second half is ours. If you have the ability, then collect our corpses." Saying this, Chen Guo raised her gun and resolutely rushed toward the male extraordinary life form, who was suppressed by the firepower in a narrow area. Maeve took a deep breath, lowered her head, and heavily kissed Mr. Kim's forehead, whispering, "Old Kim, you are a good man, what a pity." Saying this, Maeve raised her pistol, walked behind Chen Guo, and used the pistol to support Chen Guo's attack. "What a good man, cough cough cough." Mr. Kim spat out large mouthfuls of blood mixed with minced meat. At this time, "You still have the mood to sigh?" Behind him, a familiar voice suddenly came. Mr. Kim moved his gaze with difficulty, and saw Nan Xiaonan standing outside the cage. At this time, Nan Xiaonan's face was still pale, just like every time he saw her weak and helpless appearance. You should have recorded this scene, not here, cough cough. Are you stupid? Isn't there a bracket? Who would carry such a heavy thing for no reason?" Nan Xiaonan retorted with a trace of anger. You are a group of lunatics. A group of idiots." Mr. Kim didn't say anything, and his eyes didn't look at Nan Xiaonan's body. Instead, he looked forward. Blood had already dyed his face red, and also dyed his remaining vision red. What he saw was actually a world of blood. Actually, I am very scared. Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but be startled. She looked at Jin Zhe in astonishment. I escaped at that time. Jin Zhe used his remaining hand to search for something in his pocket. Until now, I still don't dare to claim her body. That pile of flesh and blood, maybe not even a body. Until now, they are probably still lying in the freezer, cold. Jin Zhe, Maeve, Chengguo, Bernard, and Lawrence. Even Bebe is much stronger than me. He finally succeeded in taking out a small bottle from his pocket and used his fingers to cap the bottle with difficulty. Only I am the timid and weak one. After that, he finally turned his head and looked at Nan Xiaonan with his remaining eye that seemed to be about to close at any time. I have heard the sound of you crying. He raised his head and swallowed all the things in the bottle into his mouth. His breathing seemed to have completely stopped at this moment, and even his heartbeat seemed to have stopped. Nan Xiaonan took a deep breath. She knew what was in the bottle. It was something that could make people forget pain and sink into the spiritual world, like a hallucinogen. It didn't bring any strength to people, but only worked on people's spiritual world. Forget the pain, whether it is physical pain or mental pain. Finally, after a few breaths, Jin Zhe opened his eyes and slowly climbed up from the ground. Take good care of Bebe. Like the final radiance of the setting sun, Jin Zhe's weak state suddenly became full of strength. He stretched out his hand and took out a grenade from the tactical belt on his waist, and used his teeth to bite open the fuse on it. Charge. Charge towards the male extraordinary creature that was wreaking havoc. Nan Xiaonan fiercely grabbed the key hanging on her chest, and held it tightly. Time seemed to have slowed down for her active brain. Damn it, damn it, damn it, Jin Zhe will really die, and so will Chengguo's group. This is not a situation that can be won. The best ending is to die together. But what's the point of doing this? You gave me the key, gave me the hint, and let me come here. Just to witness this scene? If they all die, what will happen to the entrance examination? Succeed, fail? Her fingers that were holding the key had even turned white. Calm down. Calm down, quickly think, think. Think. I can't mess up the entrance examination. This is the path that leads to the maximum limit of relative freedom. Calm down. Calm down, even if the world is about to be destroyed, you can still calm down, right? Damn it, this is not something that I should have. Is it Nan Xiaonan? The real Nan Xiaonan's legacy. This kind of cheap kindness. Sure enough, there were still some emotional things left behind. Time is like the tide. When it recedes and makes the sea calm down, it is actually storing its terrifying power. In an instant, when the brain is active to the limit and can't support this kind of high-speed thinking, and has to return to normal, the flow of time suddenly becomes infinitely fast. Nan Xiaonan gritted her teeth. Damn it! What the hell am I doing? She ruthlessly pulled the key from her neck and threw it on the ground. This kind of examination, I don't want to take it. Whoever takes it is an idiot. At the same time, Xing Chuang's incantation began to become active crazily around Nan Xiaonan. At the same time, Jin Zhe had already bumped into the male transcendent being and hugged the waist of the male transcendent being tightly, releasing the hand grenade. Nan Xiaonan's eyes emitted a terrifying golden light at this time. She waved her hand and a large amount of Xing Chuang's incantation madly poured into the hand grenade at this moment. You must catch up. Stop it for me. The hand grenade that was released slowly fell to the ground at this time. Jin Zhe's face showed a look of relief. Maeve suddenly put down the pistol in her hand. Chengguo also released the machete at this time. Bernard raised his head and faced the light. Lawrence sighed and closed his eyes. The sound of the hand grenade falling to the ground instantly fell into their hearts. It's over. Finally. They told themselves so. Bang! Bang! Under the loud sound, the world seemed to tremble. The breath that was held was still tightened. On the screen, the hand grenade that fell to the ground didn't explode in the end. In the cage, everyone looked at the hand grenade that fell to the ground in astonishment, as if they suddenly lost their minds. It didn't explode, then where did the loud sound come from? Two strong lights suddenly shot at this time. It turned out to be a black SUV. At this moment, it directly broke through the door of the warehouse and suddenly crashed into the cage without stopping. The male transcendent being was suddenly startled at this time. The moment when Jean Zay released the hand grenade, it even felt the breath of death. The fear at that moment almost made it desperate, however. Ha 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 ha! God is also helping me. You can't kill me. Ha 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 ha! Go to hell! The male transcendent being at this time, raised its claws, and then suddenly pierced toward Jean Zay's body. This time, it wanted to directly pierce Jean Zay's chest and grab his heart, and then crush the heart in front of these damn guys. At this time, a cold light flashed. The male transcendent being's claws suddenly froze. Its eyes were confused, and it turned its head inconceivably. Subconsciously, it subconsciously looked at the car that broke through the cage, and saw a figure in a trench coat. At this time, there was a small, flying dagger stuck in its temple. Bang 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 bang! Several more gunshots rang out at this moment. At the door of the black SUV on the other side, Mahoud held a pistol and fired continuously. The bullets passed through the twisted iron railing and shot at the male transcendent being's eyes. The fragile eyeballs were directly shot at this moment. Damn it, this is the most amazing thing I've done in my life. Sir Ma couldn't help but scream at this time. The male transcendent being's body instinctively retreated a few steps. It opened its mouth as if it wanted to say something, and finally fell back. Seeing this, in the dead silence, the little werewolf rushed out, ran to the camera, and pressed the button to turn it off. The screen completely darkened. Hashtag 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 PS. There is one more chapter before 12 o'clock. Chapter 2040. Okay. I'll take care of it. Old Lou, I want to be alone. Outside the warehouse of the farm, more than a dozen police cars had already surrounded it. After hanging up the phone, Mahoud quickly walked to Yi Yan's side. At this moment, Yi Yan was standing in front of Jean Zay without saying a word. Jean Zay's body was dragged out of the cage and placed aside. His breathing was so weak that it was almost non-existent. On the other side, Chen Guo and the others all had serious injuries left from fighting with male extraordinary creatures. All of them were crippling injuries. They sat quietly against the wall, looking very calm. The ambulance is on the way, but it will take some time. Mahoud patted Yi Yan's shoulder and looked at the motionless Jean Zay. He frowned and hesitated. Can Jean Zay make it? Yi Yan shook his head. He can't make it. Officer Ma couldn't help but feel sad. Suddenly, he went to Big Beard Bernard like a madman, grabbing his collar and lifting him up. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Bernard looked at him. Facing such a roar, he only showed a smile that made Mahoud's heart tremble. Sir Ma angrily threw Bernard down and ran out of the warehouse, yelling, "Where's the ambulance? Haven't they arrived yet? Ambulance!" This fat police officer is a good person. She looked up and leaned her head against the wall. Speaking of which, you've been chasing us for so long, but we don't seem to know your name. Yi Yan nodded. You've been chasing us for so long, but we still don't know your name. Yi Yan looked at Bernard expressionlessly. Didn't this guy tell you? Agent Bernard? Big Beard shrugged. I'm just a bad guy who hides in the office to get paid, not an agent. Yi Yan shook his head as Bernard's information flashed through his mind. This guy used to be a member of his organization's faith and security department. The reason he joined Ice Cream Pudding was that an orphanage donated by Bernard was completely destroyed in a supernatural incident. 36 children and 4 workers from the orphanage had all died. My name is Yi Yan. Yi Yan slowly said. They all glanced at Yi Yan and didn't continue to speak. At this moment, Yi Yan frowned and said, 2 women escaped just now. One of them should be one of your members. She's called Bei. Who was the other one? Are they new companions?" When the werewolf turned off the camera, the woman who was supposed to be next to the cage suddenly disappeared. Later on, according to the little werewolf's judgment, what seemed to have disappeared were the scents of 2 women, but he didn't have time to track them down because the scene at that time was too chaotic. Moreover, the male supernatural creature's corpse was lying there. "Go and investigate yourself, Officer Yi." Bernard smiled and said, "I hope you can find it." "I will." Yi Yen nodded. Then, Yi Yen walked in front of Bernard, grabbed his wrist, and handcuffed him. He said in a low voice, "I'm sorry, this time. I've caught you." In a house not far from the farm, Nan Xiaonan slowly put Bei, who was on her back, on the ground. Bei had been injected with drugs and wouldn't wake up for a while. She didn't know if she would be able to accept it after she woke up and found out everything. Nan Xiaonan fetched some water and wiped Bei's face. As for the owners of this house, they were now trapped in the room. Temporary Star created the door lock. It was a very simple matter. However, they couldn't stay here for too long. The police outside would probably find this place soon. Nan Xiaonan had to think about what to do next. First, she had to find a way to settle Bei down, and then Nan Xiaonan suddenly regretted and blamed herself. She shouldn't have taken action. Frankly speaking, what did the ice cream pudding have to do with her? "I'm too careless, too careless." The witch of the academic school in her world couldn't help but smile bitterly. What a beautiful child! Suddenly, a voice that made Nan Xiaonan feel a chill from the bottom of her heart sounded around. This witch of the academic school in her world couldn't help but shiver and turn back. In the dark night, the elegant servant girl came behind her. There was even a hint of a smile on the servant girl's face that Nan Xiaonan couldn't figure out. "Hi, madam. Good evening." "Lady Nan, you're talking nonsense again." The servant girl took 2 steps forward and slowly opened her palm in front of Nan Xiaonan. A key was suspended in the servant girl's palm at this time. This was the key that Nan Xiaonan pulled out and asked someone to throw it to the ground. Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but wail in her heart at this time, thinking that what should come would come eventually. But she didn't expect it to come so fast that she didn't even have time to think about how to explain it. "Wow. So it's with you, madam." Nan Xiaonan instantly put on a harmless and silly smile. She even knocked on her own head and stuck out her tongue. "I must have accidentally left it somewhere when I was running away. I was so worried I thought it was really lost." With this, Nan Xiaonan stretched out her hand to grab the key. The servant girl didn't move, and the key quietly suspended in her palm. She just narrowed her eyes at Nan Xiaonan. Nan Xiaonan's heart suddenly thumped, and her hands became stiff. She didn't know whether to take it or not. The servant girl said slowly, "Lady Nan, how dare you? This is the thing that the master gave you, and you threw it on the ground without thinking, and even stepped on it several times." "I didn't step on it. I just threw it, don't accuse me." F***ck. She felt that it was too late to cover her mouth now. But she still covered her mouth, thinking that she should struggle. "I didn't mean it, I didn't know what I was thinking at that time," she desperately explained. "You see, I didn't choose my body well at that time, did I? At that time, I didn't have a choice. I could only hurriedly find the nearest one, the one with the best compatibility. I also didn't know that her remaining sense of justice was so strong. Hey, lady boss, listen to me, I was..." "Congratulations, Lady Nan, the master said you're qualified." "I was..." "What did you say?" The servant girl chuckled, and slowly handed the key in her hand to Nan Xiaonan. "The moment you threw it away, you were qualified." Nan Xiaonan sucked in a breath of cold air in disbelief. "There's such a thing? Follow me." The servant girl chuckled and walked out. Nan Xiaonan didn't have time to think about it. She looked back at the sleeping Bei, frowned, and temporarily put a few things in the living room under Xing Chuang's care, and then hurriedly followed her out. "The ambulance is here. Hurry up." There's an injured person, seriously injured. Very, very seriously injured. Please. Sir Ma hurriedly pulled a young man wearing a mask from the ambulance, and directly walked into the warehouse. Have I seen you somewhere before? You feel very familiar? How could it be, Officer Ma? Oh, that's right, eh? How do you know my name? Isn't it written on your ID, Officer Ma? Ma Howd subconsciously glanced at the ID hanging on his neck, nodded, and didn't say anything. Then two female medical staff wearing masks came out of the ambulance. Boss Jean, who was placed on the ground, was quickly put on a stretcher and sent into the ambulance. Because it was an emergency, the ambulance directly went ahead. Of course, there was a police officer accompanying it. Later ambulances also sent the remaining people of ice cream pudding away. The werewolf accompanied them, and Yi Yen and Ma Howd still stayed at the scene. There was a corpse here. It was the corpse of the male extraordinary creature. At this moment, Yi Yen squatted beside the corpse, looking at the throwing knife stuck in the corpse's forehead. This throwing knife was the last one he threw, but Yi Yen frowned at this moment. Old Yi, your flying knife is really… How did you practice it? I also want to know. Yi Yen shook his head. What do you mean? Sir Ma now asked confusedly. It's reasonable to say that this guy's bones are very hard, this knife is too deep. Yi Yen thought for a while and said, as if I didn't shoot it. It's super amazing, Ma Howd said proudly. Did you see my 2 super amazing shots? Tut tut. I can brag until the day I die. Keep bragging. Yi Yen rolled his eyes. At this time, a group of men in black rushed over. From now on, this place will be taken over by the administration. Please cooperate with us. Yi Yen couldn't help frowning, but didn't say anything. Hey, Sister Long, you're back so fast. In the pet hospital's living room, everyone looked at Kelowna Shinryu, who ran back excitedly. Long Shirua didn't say anything, but went upstairs directly. What could she say? She couldn't run fast in the city of exclusion, and she couldn't call for a taxi during the curfew. She just ran a few streets, and the live broadcast was over, so she had to run back unwillingly? She was crazy. The ambulance was moving on the dark road. However, the driver and the accompanying police officers were already asleep. However, the steering wheel was still turning automatically. It drove steadily. In the ambulance, 1 male and 2 female paramedics were looking at Jean Zhe, who was motionless on the stretcher. One of the female paramedics hesitated. Boss, is this guy really going to die? In this case, normally, it's true. The male paramedic said slowly. Then we are. She took off her mask and showed her face. Nan Xiaonan. The other 2 were naturally Boss Luo and Miss Servant Girl in disguise. Of course, we're here to respond to the customer's request. Miss Servant Girl looked at Nan Xiaonan and said calmly, Lady Nan, don't you think Mr. Jean Zhe's soul is unusually active? Nan Xiaonan nodded subconsciously. It should be because of the Great Qing pill he took. Great Qing pill? Boss Luo looked at Nan Xiaonan strangely. Nan Xiaonan smiled embarrassedly. Don't care about these details. Let's go back to the Great Qing dynasty and talk about this pill. Boss, you should have known when you gave me the pill, right? Its function, Miss Servant Girl said calmly. It can be used on the spirit and enhance the soul to a certain extent. If it's taken for a long time, it can even slightly strengthen the soul. But it shouldn't be able to change the essence of the soul. Nan Xiaonan said seriously. Although I don't know what the creator of this pill intends to do, the essence of the soul is difficult to change. There were too many fields involved in this. However, to actually be able to enhance the soul was already a very rare thing. But it doesn't seem to be the technology of this subworld. And what's the purpose of making this pill? To see me, Boss Luo said suddenly. To see you? Nan Xiaonan was stunned, her mouth slightly opened. To be exact, to make the shop appear. Boss Luo thought for a while, but they probably didn't expect that I can revoke some of the previous rules. I feel like I've been calculated. Miss Servant Girl chuckled. Boss Luo said casually, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I also want to see how far this pill can go. This Mr. Jean is obviously just a clinical experiment. Nan Xiaonan listened to the conversation between Boss Luo and Miss Servant Girl with some doubts. She couldn't understand the meaning of this at once. But she would understand the meaning of this conversation later, when she understood some of the shop's rules. If the essence of the soul could be artificially changed to attract the shop to appear, and then a controllable transaction could be carried out, this method would become a shortcut to obtain the shop's ability. Although such a shortcut still needed to pay an equal price, but it did become controllable. Suddenly, the ambulance jolted, as if it was on an uneven ground. At the same time, Nan Xiaonan saw a white light outside the curtain. Sunlight. Sunlight? Where is this? She subconsciously opened the curtain and looked out. The sun was shining outside, surrounded by mountains, blue sky and white clouds, a sea of flowers. Jean Zhe, wake up. Jean Zhe, it was the smell of grass. Jean Zhe opened his eyes. He did wake up in a sea of flowers. He slowly propped himself up and looked at his hands in confusion. There was a dim light everywhere. Jean Zhe couldn't feel the pain from the wound on his forehead. He just saw a figure weaving a garland in the sea of flowers. His lips trembled. He got up and slowly walked to the back of the figure. He was afraid that if he walked too fast, he would wake her up. He was afraid that if he walked too fast, everything would suddenly disappear and he would wake up with a start. This might be a dream. Jean Zhe. Finally, the woman turned around and raised the finished garland to him. You're here. Clap, clap. Nan Xiaonan put her palms together, closed her eyes and bowed. Mr. Jean, congratulations on your family reunion. In the middle of the sea of flowers there was a small mound of earth. Although this mound looked a little out of place with the sea of flowers, the seeds of the flowers would germinate on the mound and then cover it up. But why? Nan Xiaonan looked at Boss Luo confusedly. Because of kindness? Boss Luo put down a white rose in front of the grave and smiled. Listen. Nan Xiaonan opened her mouth. Listen to what? She looked at the nameless grave in a daze. A gust of wind blew and messed up her hair. There seemed to be a voice in the wind. Save him, anyone, save him, save this poor man. I hope he can be happy. I hope he can be free, save him. This was everyone's heartfelt wish. Although it was weak, in this world, at that moment there were thousands, millions, tens of millions of people who were begging for something. At this moment, the breeze gradually gathered in Boss Luo's palm. Finally, it formed a dazzling ball of light and then disappeared into his palm. Boss Luo whispered, It's quite heavy. Chapter 2041. In a secret corner. A young man wearing a freight company's uniform appeared on the screen. Another young man in a white shirt was sitting casually in front of the screen. The young man in the white shirt said thoughtfully, So, the experiment of soul ascension failed. You can't say that. The young man on the screen said indifferently, He just didn't appear in the end. It doesn't mean that soul ascension is a failure. Maybe it's because the effect isn't enough, or maybe it's because Jean Zhe's physique isn't suitable, or maybe the catalysis method is wrong. After all, a soul ascension was brought by the fool. It doesn't matter. If you like, you can continue the experiment. The young man in the white shirt didn't care, however. The development of soul ascension is just to make it more convenient. Now, though black card, scattered all over the world, is obviously more effective than soul ascension. The young man on the screen said, You're not the only one who has eyes on the black card. Everyone has eyes on it. Moreover, there's a limited number of black cards. If soul ascension is successful, it can be mass-produced. Even if it can be mass-produced, the materials needed to make soul ascension are quite troublesome. This doesn't necessarily mean that it's more cost-effective. The young man in the white shirt suddenly said, You come back first. Get ready, it's almost time. The young man on the screen didn't say anything, but the communication was directly disconnected at this time. He was the one who disconnected it. The young man in the white shirt suddenly chuckled at this time and muttered, "So fast. I was going to make fun of this guy's clothes. It's really not suitable." Shaking his head, the young man in the white shirt slowly looked at a palm-sized white jade statue placed in front of the table. It was obviously a very good jade, and the jade statue was carved in the shape of a woman. He stared at the white jade statue for a moment. Next, after a moment, the young man in the white shirt walked out of the room. He walked in a long, narrow, white metal passage. After a while, the young man in the white shirt came to a metal door. The door opened and he stepped in. Inside was a huge ring-shaped testing ground. A large number of people in silver robes were busy underground in this testing ground. The entire experimental field was at least 40 to 50 meters deep, and a large number of transport tracks crisscrossed within it. Above the tracks, huge spheres filled with liquid hung, and within these spheres, there were many identical bodies soaked in the light gray liquid. These are about to mature as well. The white-robed young man retracted his gaze and looked up at the highest spot. At the very top, there were two huge cylindrical containers, and each of the containers had a person hidden inside. One was Yen Xiaoxi and the other was Feral. They seemed to be in a deep sleep, not moving at all. After midnight, Nan Xiaonan returned to the house that Bei Bei was temporarily staying in. No one had found this place yet, but it would be soon. Nan Xiaonan quietly took Bei Bei away. This was already outside the boundaries of the city of exclusion, and she could already do many things herself. Nan Xiaonan didn't bring Bei Bei back to the city of exclusion. Instead, she sent Bei Bei to a small county town in the middle of the night, where she found a lonely old man's house. Things like memories couldn't be changed. However, it wasn't difficult to change some memories. The old granny was in good health, but her children had passed away due to a traffic accident many years ago. Bei Bei was now moving in with the identity of her long-lost granddaughter. Although this was a very soap opera plot, she didn't need to use her brain, right? The fellows in the ice cream pudding all hoped that she could take good care of Bei Bei, but this demoness from their world didn't agree to it directly, did she? Nan Xiaonan felt that she was really a good person, and that she had done her best. This way it was convenient and convenient, how nice! Before she left, she placed her hand on Bei Bei's forehead to calm her unstable mind. After little 8 changes your personal information, you can continue to live with a new identity. From now on, your name will be Bei Bei. This was because she was too lazy to think of another name. Forget Jean Zhe, forget everyone in the ice cream pudding. Finally, forget me, little girl. At dawn, Nan Xiaonan left the small county town alone. She was going back to see the boss. Yes, this time, she could really call him boss. Time would go back a little bit. After the people from the Kelowna administration took over the scene, they quickly moved the corpse of the male transcendent being away. As for Yi Yan, Sir Ma, and the little werewolf, they were also brought back. Finally, the members of the ice cream pudding, except for Jean Zhe. After the ambulance that took Jean Zhe away arrived at the hospital, Jean Zhe had completely turned into a corpse, and he was sent to the morgue without any chance of rescue. After hearing this news, Bernard and the others who were imprisoned were silent for a moment, and then they laughed out loud under the surprised gaze of the interrogators. However, as they laughed, they began to cry. They cried bitterly. No one knew what their fates were going to be for the time being. In theory, the Ice Cream Pudding Organization was defined as a terrorist organization by the Interpol, and this organization had always been secretly controlled by the Magician Association. Before dawn, the owner of the Magician Association, Ice Tower, personally came to the temporary command center of the administration to meet Fire Cloud Evil God. The two of them met in a guest room, and they separated from each other. Madam Ice, do you mean to let them go? Fire Cloud Evil God looked at this mature woman with slight surprise. In fact, the owner of the ice tower was indeed a rare beauty, and she wasn't a bow-legged woman like what Father Stella said. But the old man still curiously glanced at this woman's dress. "What do you think, Sir Fire Cloud?" the owner of the ice tower asked in return. Fire Cloud Evil God said indifferently, "Although they are now causing some trouble in the city of Forbidden, and they have also attacked the hotels where several delegations stayed, they didn't cause any direct casualties. Even if we want to investigate, at most we will just lock them up for a while. Then let's say that the Magician Association is asking for a favor from the Kelowna administration," the owner of the ice tower said directly. Fire Cloud Evil God said in a deep voice, Are you really going to let these people go?" "Actually, we haven't thought about how to deal with this matter." The owner of the ice tower shook her head and said, "But first we have to have them in our hands, then we can decide what to do next. With the intelligence ability of your administration, it shouldn't be difficult to know what is happening in the European continent." Fire Cloud Evil God didn't speak. But in his mind, he quickly thought about the information sent back by the overseas agents in the past 1 or 2 hours. The European continent was a huge alliance made up of many countries, and in the past few hours, there were already more than 5 countries, 16 famous cities, and uncontrollable protests that broke out. Like an ignited bomb, the riots spread to every corner at lightning speed. The most serious one was the city where the headquarters of the criminal police organization was located. It was said that more than 30 minutes ago, the headquarters of the Interpol was already surrounded by angry residents, and the number of people joining in was still increasing. Protests, demonstrations. The supermarket's $0 shopping day seemed to be a traditional skill of these Western countries. Now, the sky in Kelowna was still not completely bright. Presumably, in a few hours, when the sky was completely bright, there would only be more riots in the European continent. But the European continent was just the beginning. Fire Cloud Evil God slowly exhaled, his face showing a trace of helplessness. For so many years, although there has never been a time like this, where we gather together to discuss future development, it is the first time. But all along, everyone has been doing the same thing. We have been trying to maintain the fragile balance between transcendence and ordinary people, letting transcendence hide in the darkness. Originally, we wanted to use this summit to have a smooth transition between the two sides, but now we have overturned so much of what we have done before. This is not necessarily a bad thing. The Ice Tower Master suddenly said, "The Transcendent Association should indeed come out." Fire Cloud Evil God said with a wry smile, "This may not be able to calm the fear in people's hearts." The Ice Tower Master said seriously, "But it is something we must do." Fire Cloud Evil God was silent for a long time, then finally nodded and said, "You can take them away. But I also want to ask for a favor from your Magician Association." "Your Excellency Fire Cloud, please speak. I hope you can treat these people well in the end." The Ice Tower Master looked deeply at Fire Cloud Evil God, but didn't agree or refuse. It was dawn and Kelowna was still calm. Although the heart wasn't calm, this country originally had a kind of unforgettable national binding force. But when the people of China woke up after a bad night's rest, they opened the consultation channel and instantly received an overwhelming amount of explosive information. A storm surrounding the events of the previous night began in Eurasia and swept across the entire world. Lizzie originally wanted to watch a local program about street food that she watched every day, but she changed the channel more than 10 times, and all of them were special news programs. "I don't want to watch any more." Lizzie directly put down her phone. They were now on the way to the Transcendent Summit Conference. Although something that shook the whole world happened last night, today was the day the Transcendent Summit Conference reopened. Auntie Ren and Lizzie went out at dawn. "You have to watch it even if you don't want to. Give me some material," Auntie Ren said at this time. "There is no first-hand information." Old Ma, this guy, actually turned off his phone. At the end of the live broadcast last night, I clearly saw this guy flashing. I'm so angry. Lizzie immediately criticized. Sister Ren, you're wrong. You're eating human blood steamed buns. Ren Xiling didn't even look at it. She just picked up a steamed bun and directly stuffed it into Lizzie's mouth. Old Q, who was driving the car, looked at her but didn't say anything. Hey, what are you looking at? Lizzie nibbled on the steamed bun and leaned over to look at Ren Xiling curiously. Auntie Ren stared at the notebook on her lap without blinking. Black card. Black card. Old Q turned around at this time. Is it that popular online platform that suddenly appeared recently? Ren Xiling nodded and quickly said, It's even more popular now. I don't know who actually released a lot of information about extraordinary creatures on the Black Card website, and they claimed that it was the top secret information that the United Nations police had prevented for so many years. I've seen some. Most of them are cases of non-human creatures killing ordinary people in Europe. Not only are there document reports, but there are also photos, videos and so on. F***CK. Isn't it exploding? Old Q suddenly stepped on the brake. Auntie Rin sighed. Although such a large-scale protest riot is expected, I'm afraid that the information on the Black Card website has something to do with the rapid development of the situation. I just don't know who is behind this Black Card website. He's quite capable to be able to dig up so much top-secret information. The interview car moved again, and soon after, the interview car arrived at the scene of the extraordinary summit. Ren Xiling led Lizzie and Old Q out of the car and prepared to enter. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but Ren Xiling felt that the scene of today's summit seemed a little bleak. On the sea, a figure walked on the waves as if it was flat ground. Not long after, this figure stopped on top of a protruding reef in the sea. This was a guy with a face full of yellow hair. Sun Shaoxing. It's here, the entrance of the Xianyuan Palace. Brother Shaoxing said to himself at this moment, then he took out a round jade pendant. He injected a beastkin power into the jade pendant and activated it directly. In an instant, a golden light shot out from the jade pendant and covered Brother Shaoxing's body. He directly disappeared from the reef. After a while, another figure shot out of the water and landed on the reef. A figure shot out of the water. It was a man wearing a long robe. The man's body wasn't wet at all. Instead, he looked extremely dry. Strange, just now it seemed. The man in the long robe looked around in confusion. In the end, he couldn't find anything, so he had to dive into the water again. As one of the gatekeepers at the entrance of the Xianyuan Palace, the man had to be more sensitive. After all, there was nothing wrong with being careful. Just when he was about to dive into the water again, a golden sword light suddenly shot from a distance and quietly entered the man's body. The man fell into the sea in an instant. This time, the sea water directly wet his whole body. At the same time, another furious voice sounded, and the sea instantly burst into a towering water column. Who are you? How dare you hurt people in front of the Xianyuan Palace? In an instant, after the towering water column, the sea water within a radius of hundreds of meters shot out hundreds of water arrows at the same time. A man in a long robe was suspended in the air at this time, and his body was flashing with golden light. The guard in front of the Xianyuan Palace must be the golden sword warrior of the Xianyuan Palace, a person with high combat power. Shuyi, you can't stop me. A faint voice came from the sky. The man in the long robe. Shuyi's face changed slightly in an instant. He looked up and said in a trembling voice, You are, in an instant, countless water arrows turned back in an instant. They turned into golden sword chi, and the lightning arrows bombarded Shuyi's body. The sky was full of blood, and Shuyi fell into the sea. You are from the Gongsun clan. I won't really kill you, but you'd better not wake up during this time. On the reef, the young man in white calmly looked at the sea in front of him. A whirlpool appeared, and a huge door slowly rose from the whirlpool. In the green mountains and clear waters, a figure quickly climbed up an ancient tree. Then, he looked at a tall tower in the mountains and muttered, "This is the immortal suppressing pagoda of the Xianyuan Palace, ha! Son Shaosheng, I want you to help me enter the immortal suppressing pagoda and bring someone out." Chapter 2042. Qian and Kuan were the two most powerful divisions in Xianyuan Palace. The Qian division was the Gongsun clan, while the Kuan division absorbed the monsters. They were the two pillars of Xianyuan Palace. However, the Xianyuan Palace had 6 other divisions, each with their own duties. There was no lack of powerful people in the various tribes. Kansas. The Kan hexagram represented the combination of 2 Kans, yang sinking into yin, meaning danger on top of danger, layers upon layers of dangers, natural dangers, and earthly dangers. Within the Xianyuan Palace, the Kan division monitored both inside and outside the palace. They were hidden among the members of the various divisions and were the most mysterious. Throughout history, only the division leader of the Kan division knew how many members there were in the Kan division. The division leader of Kan division didn't have to be the strongest person in Xianyuan Palace, but he had to be the most loyal person to Xianyuan Palace. Yet, the current division leader of Kan division was from the Gongsun clan of Gon division. He was division leader Gongsuan's younger brother. Some time ago, division leader Gongsuan's son, Gongsun Xiu of the Gongsun clan, had caused a ruckus. After a series of events, division leader Gongsun had voluntarily entered the cold pond in the palace to receive his punishment. Although the various divisions sympathized with division leader Gongsun, who had been tricked by his son, the rules of the palace could not be broken. Other than watching division leader Gongsun fall into the cold pond, the various divisions had no other choice. However, a division couldn't go without a leader, so Gongsun Wuzong of the Kan division entered the Qian division and temporarily took over the position of division leader of the Qian division. However, Gongsun Wuzong was still the division leader of the Kan division. With 2 divisions in hand, he could be said to be the most powerful person in the Xianyuan Palace, second only to the imperial princess. Gongsun Wuzong didn't like to talk. Even though he was from the Gongsun clan, he didn't interact much with him. He had no wife, no children, and was all alone in this world. Now, even though Gongsun Wuzong had joined the Qian tribe, he didn't live in the Gongsun clan's village of the Qian tribe. Instead, he lived in the heavy water mountain of the Kan tribe. Gongsun Wuzong lived in seclusion and rarely came out. He would never leave unless it was a major event in the palace or a discussion in the court. In addition to the fact that he was an otaku, there was also another mission of the Kan tribe. The Devil Suppressing Pagoda was located in the heavy water mountain of the Kan tribe. Due to the fact that the immortals from beyond the heavens were trapped in the Devil Suppressing Pagoda, it was also known as the Immortal Suppressing Pagoda. Heavy Water Mountain, Kan Division Kanshui Palace, where the division leader was meditating, Gongsun Wuzong suddenly opened his eyes. At this moment, the boy under the seat hurriedly bowed and was about to speak. Gongsun Wuzong suddenly coughed a few times before slowly saying, "He's here." "Who is it?" The boy under the seat was startled. Everyone knew that division leader Wuzong was the strongest shut-in Xianyuan Palace. He didn't have many friends. If he didn't go out, no one would come looking for him. While they were talking, they suddenly heard some shouts and sounds of fighting outside the Kanshui Palace. Gongsun Wuzong immediately stood up and walked out of the hall. The boy under him hurriedly followed. "Little Rain, don't move. Continue farming for me." Gongsun Wuzong's voice came from the front. "Today, you must get the last 2 pieces of the abyss for me. Princess Shi." "Yes, the game that Lord Long introduced is not bad." The boy's expression changed slightly. Then, he sighed and sat back down. He rubbed his sore wrist, took a deep breath, clicked the mouse and shouted, "Kill!" The Xianyuan Palace was a paradise, but the days there were boring. The life of the Kan tribe was even more boring, and all they could do was play games. Outside the Kanshui Palace, In the Kanshui Plaza behind the 999 stairs, dozens of Kanshui people were on full alert. A white-robed young man walked over leisurely. The dozens of Kanshui people surrounded the white-robed young man. Every time the young man took a step, they took a step and didn't attack. You are Gongsun Shiyu? You are not dead yet. How is that possible? The white-robed young man said calmly, if you don't attack now, you will miss the best opportunity to attack. If you lose this aura, the heavy water sword array of the Kanshui Palace will be much weaker. The Kanshui people were startled, but they knew that the white-robed young man was right. Attack! A member of the Kanshui group shouted in a deep voice. The dozens of Kanshui people instantly activated the true power in their bodies. The huge Kanshui Palace square instantly turned into a pool of white. The water wasn't as simple as flowing water. It was as viscous as mercury, making it difficult for people to take a step. Every step seemed to be stuck to the body, and their movements were slow. Hundreds of sword lights flashed in the white mist, flying over and bombarding the white-robed young man. Boom! There seemed to be an explosion sound. The white-robed young man's figure was instantly cut into countless pieces under the attack of hundreds of sword lights. It's done, no. Damn it. In the water, the pool was broken, the white mist dissipated, and a huge force turned into ripples. It was as if a great terror had struck. The Kanshui people were all catapulted out and fell to the ground. The white-robed young man walked forward leisurely again. The power of the 3-layered water is still lacking. The 6-layered water can only stop me for 3 breaths. The 9-layered water is somewhat interesting. It's a pity that the 9-layered water can't be mastered. Uncle Wuzong, long time no see. In front of the Kanshui Palace, there was a man wearing a loose robe, cloth shoes, and heels. His hair was disheveled, and he looked younger than the white-clothed youth. At this moment, he narrowed his eyes and stared. He stretched his neck to look, and then walked down the stairs to take a few more looks. Only then did he nod. Yes, he does look like Shiryu, but he is not the Shiryu I know. Who are you? Gongsun Wuzong brushed his disheveled hair and walked down quickly. Then he frowned and looked at the Kanshui people in the square. He suddenly put his hands on his waist and criticized, Each of you, I told you to practice martial arts, but you didn't listen. Now you can't even get up, right? You don't have drumsticks to eat tonight. The Kanshui people didn't dare to speak. They supported each other and retreated to the side, lowering their heads silently. We haven't seen each other for many years. Uncle Wuzong is still a carefree person. The white-robed young man chuckled. Gongsun Wuzong brushed his disheveled hair again and looked at the white-robed young man. Carefree my ass. Squatting in this godforsaken place every day, how can I be carefree? Do you like it? I'll let you take my place. Can I open the immortal suppressing pagoda? The white-robed young man smiled. Gongsun Musashi nodded. Go ahead. You are the division leader of the Kanshui Palace. You can fight if you want. I'm talking about the basement of the immortal suppressing pagoda, not the basement. The white-robed young man shook his head. Basement? Gongsun Wuzong was surprised and quickly waved his hand. What basement? I've never heard of it, never heard of it. The white-robed young man said indifferently, Uncle Wuzong, don't be embarrassed. I only want the one on the 5th basement floor. After taking him away today, I won't come to the Xianyuan Palace again. Gongsun Wuzong shook his head and waved his hand to drive him away. I said I haven't heard of it, so I haven't heard of it. Where did this rude brat come from? Go, go. I used to think about when to break into the Kanshui Palace. The white-robed young man slowly stretched out his hand at this time. Golden light flickered in his palm and his eyes drooped slightly. At that time, it wasn't for the immortal suppressing pagoda. I just wanted to see Uncle Wuzong's immortal heaven god technique. With that, the white-robed young man waved his hand, and a sword light instantly shot out from his 2 fingers, 3 feet long. Today, let's do 2 things together. The white-robed young man stepped forward. Gongsun Wuzong flicked his hair and glared at him. "Don't touch me!" However, with a flash, the white-clothed young man charged into the tall pagoda in the depths of the Kanshui Palace. He chuckled and said, "The various divisions of the Xianyuan Palace will be here soon. There are too many people and too many eyes. Uncle Wuzong, let's enter the pagoda and compete." Gongsun Wuzong rolled his eyes at this time. After the white-robed young man crashed into the tower, he jumped directly to the main hall of the Kanshui Palace and shouted at the top of his voice, "Fight! Someone come!" The voice exploded in the sky of the entire Xianyuan Palace in an instant, like thunder. All of a sudden, everyone was terrified. Gongsun Wuzong also turned into a streamer at this time and directly entered the Immortal Suppressing Pagoda. Kanshui Palace. Outside the Immortal Suppressing Pagoda, Sun Shaoxing squatted, covering his ears, hiding behind a big tree. His eyes also rolled. A white-robed young man landed in front of the gate of the Immortal Suppressing Pagoda at this time. The sword light in his hand slashed down and fell between the gap of the giant door. In an instant, the giant door cracked a little. The white-robed young man shot out his palm across the air, and the giant door that had cracked a little was instantly broken open. He stepped directly into it. The next moment, Gongsun Wuzong stepped in the air and stared at the giant door that was broken open. He seemed to be furious and said angrily, "You bastard, do you know that my salary will be deducted like this? Uncle Wuzong, I'll wait for you inside. You really haven't been beaten by someone before." Gongsun Wuzong beat his chest and stamped his feet. "Your father is reluctant to beat you, so he asked me to beat you." With that, Gongsun Wuzong also stepped into the Immortal Suppressing Pagoda. In the distance, Sun Shaoxing rolled his eyes again, then he snickered a few times. He shook his butt and flashed into the Immortal Suppressing Pagoda after Gongsun Wuzong. Later, the people of the Kanshui Palace chased after them. Soon after, the people of the Xianyuan Palace also arrived. However, they could only block the entrance of the Immortal Suppressing Pagoda for a while, hesitating to move forward. They really went in. This is a forbidden area. Anyone from the Xianyuan Palace who enters the pagoda is a traitor. Everyone, what should we do? Wuzong is the guardian of the pagoda. He can enter, but we can't. There's no other way. We can only wait. An old man's eyes lit up at this time, and he said, "Everyone, listen to my order. As long as a demon rushes out of the pagoda, kill it directly without mercy. Elder, don't panic. The demons in the pagoda have been suppressed for at least hundreds of years. The earliest one was imprisoned in the pagoda when the Xianyuan Palace was founded. Even if it didn't die, I'm afraid that its vitality has been depleted. It can't make any big waves. There's no harm in being careful." The old man who spoke waved his hand. "Send the order to seal off the Xianyuan Palace immediately. All the golden sword warriors and silver sword warriors are dispatched. Set up the array and seal off the heavy water mountain. Ring the war bell." A figure was walking in a wasteland. Sun Shaoxing. Brother Shaoxing frowned at this moment, and quickly took out a compass the size of a makeup mirror box from his arms. He squinted his eyes and stared at it. This pagoda is really terrifying. One level, one world. Even the first level is already, the wasteland was barren, and there was no spiritual energy in the air. Being trapped in such an environment, even if he did nothing, he would gradually lose his strength and die. In the clouds of the first level of the Suppressing Immortals Pagoda, the airwaves were rolling. Sword lights fell from the sky one after another, cutting a terrifying crack on the wasteland. "Ouch, it hurts. You wild child, don't you know what it means to respect your elders?" Uncle Wu Zhang's divine skill is really mysterious. Today's battle is not in vain. "I'll hit you." The sword lights were dazzling. However, in this terrifying sword light, there was a divine light that seemed to be invulnerable. In this terrifying sword momentum, it was as majestic as a mountain and incomparably heavy. Brother Shaoxing shrank his neck, stared at the compass in his hand, and directly dived into the ground, sneaking underground. The young man in white had a high cultivation. He was a freak. As for Gongsun Wuzong, he was also a freak. Sun Shaoxing knew that it would be quite difficult to deal with one of them, let alone the two of them. This time, being a bootlicker, he might not get everything in the end, but he might get nothing? This matter is simple. As long as you hold my token, you can enter the Xian Yuan Palace directly without disturbing the gate. Then you can go to the Suppressing Immortals Pagoda and use my token to enter without disturbing the gate. Take this compass, it will take you to the destination. When you arrive, open the gate and take the person inside away. It's very simple. Simple, my ass. What a loss. If I knew this would happen, I would have asked for some deposit first. Even if he was sneaking underground, the battle between Gongsun Wuzong and the young man in white could still press the power into the ground. Brother Shaoxing could only bear it silently at this time. He could not use his demonic power to fight against it. Once he exposed himself, he would have to face not only Gongsun Wuzong and the young man in white, but also the 8 major tribes in the Xian Yuan Palace. He was not the Shinryu of Kelowna, nor was he the legendary ancestor. Naturally, he couldn't fight hundreds of people alone. He really couldn't afford to offend them. At this moment, an evil thought suddenly swept Sun Shaoxing's body, making him shudder. Flesh and blood. Well, how many years has it been? I thought I would wither again. It seems that I can live for a few hundred more years. Sun Shaoxing only felt that he seemed to have broken something, and suddenly entered a more uncomfortable space. He thought that this might not be the second floor of the Suppressing Immortals Pagoda. He went down, so he shouldn't go up to the second floor, but the underground floor? What kind of terrifying old demon is suppressed in this underground floor? It was just an evil thought, but it made Sun Shaoxing's pores open, and he was frightened. Brother Shaoxing, I won't play with you, ha! Sun Shaoxing cast out the compass in his hand. Suddenly, a white light covered Sun Shaoxing and pulled him away from this space. At the same time, an evil thought came, but it couldn't catch up with Sun Shaoxing's disappearance. In an instant, the evil thought became furious in this space. Damn Xian Yuan! Sooner or later, I will get out of this place of suppressing demons and wash the Xian Yuan Palace with blood. 1 floor, 2 floors, 3 floors, the feeling of breaking through the boundary kept appearing. At the 5th time, Sun Shaoxing even felt a terrifying gaze, as if his soul could be destroyed at a glance. It was so terrifying. Finally, after the 6th time, the light from the compass stopped. Finally, Sun Shaoxing came to a strange space. In this space, there were auspicious lights everywhere. The coldness he encountered before was swept away. There was nothing here, only a shabby wooden house. Sun Shaoxing frowned and walked into the wooden house. He hesitated for a moment and opened the wooden door. The room was bright. A white-robed monk was sitting on the futon with his palms together. Seeing Sun Shaoxing push the door in, the white-robed monk slowly opened his eyes and smiled slightly. You're here, Wukong. #########. Chapter 2043. There was a green lamp in the house, a futon, a wooden fish, a bald monk. And it was a rather handsome monk in a white robe. Other than that, there was nothing else in the house. This wooden house was just like a box made of wood. Wukong, you are here. Hearing the words of the monk in white robe, Brother Shaoxing was startled at first. He immediately frowned and then strode directly into the wooden house. He sat cross-legged directly in front of the handsome monk and looked around. Wukong, is there anything on my face that makes you stare at it? The monk in white robe said with a smile at this time. Here, are you the only one? Sun Shaoxing frowned. It should be. The monk nodded and said, since I came to this place, I am the only one. Sun Shaoxing frowned again and immediately nodded. Well, you follow me. I will take you out of this place. Where are we going? I think it's pretty good here. It's quiet. The monk shook his head and immediately smiled again. It's the same everywhere as long as there is Buddha in your heart. Brother Shaoxing didn't want to talk nonsense. He waved his hand and directly grabbed the monk's robe and lifted the monk up. But he didn't expect that the monk couldn't stand up when he just lifted the monk up. He fell down again. You? Sun Shaoxing was surprised all of a sudden. Why is this monk so weak? After passing through the first 5 floors, Sun Shaoxing felt a great sense of horror every time. Each floor was designated to lock some earth-shattering devils, but this 6th floor was, "My legs are numb." The monk said embarrassedly at this time, "I have sat for too long. Wukong, don't worry. Wait for me to massage your blood." As he said, the monk in white robe actually reached out to massage his legs and gently beat them. Sun Shaoxing's face was full of weirdness. How long have you been sitting? How long? The monk in white robe suddenly fell into contemplation. After a while, he said, "Wukong, what year is it now? Is the emperor still surnamed Li?" Sun Shaoxing suddenly widened his eyes and jumped away as if he was electrocuted. His face was full of vigilance. He stared at the monk in white robe and said in a deep voice, "Who are you? Goku, what happened to you?" The white-robed monk looked at him with a puzzled expression. Then, as if he suddenly realized something, he said, "I understand. Wukong, you are being naughty again. You want to play a role-playing game with me, right?" As he spoke, the white-robed monk's expression turned serious. His body suddenly emitted an ethereal aura of the immortal Tao, as if he was an immortal. This poor monk is little Baldy, a disciple of the ancestral master at the cave of the slanting moon and 3 stars on the Fangtsuan mountain. "May I know your name?" Brother Shaoxing couldn't help but widen his eyes. "Amitba." The white-robed monk slowly stood up. Probably because his legs were really numb, he staggered. He walked straight to Brother Shaoxing, and Brother Shaoxing instinctively stepped back. He hit the door all of a sudden and couldn't retreat. "Brother, are you here for this item?" At this moment, the white-robed monk rummaged through the white kasaya on his body. After a while, he took out a shiny golden headband. It was obviously not an ordinary item. Sun Shaoxing opened his mouth subconsciously. The white-robed monk slowly raised the shiny headband in his hand. "Brother, I want to remind you that after wearing this golden headband, you are no longer a mortal. You can't get involved in the love affairs of the mortal world. Otherwise, this golden headband will be tighter and tighter, and you will suffer unspeakable pain." "What the F***ck? What is this?" Brother Shaoxing opened his mouth. The white-robed monk suddenly stood on tiptoe and slapped Brother Shaoxing's head. He pretended to be angry. "You Wukong, I'm just playing games with you. How do I usually teach you? Don't use vulgar words." "You monk." Brother Shaoxing gritted his teeth. His eyes flashed with hostility, but he sneered and punched out silently. Even Kelowna and Shinryu didn't hit his head. "Goku, you are being naughty again. Although I love you, I still have to teach you a lesson." Bang dash! Brother Shaoxing only felt that the world was turning upside down in his eyes, and then he hit the wooden floor. The white-robed monk directly threw him over his shoulder and slammed him on the floor. This fall made Brother Shaoxing feel that his bones were about to break, and his soul couldn't help but tremble. However, this shabby wooden floor was not damaged by this impact. Although it was shabby, it was still spotless. "Master's heart hurts." The white-robed monk screamed sadly and punched his abdomen. Brother Shaoxing's eyeballs were about to pop out, and he felt that his internal organs seemed to be twitching. "My heart hurts so much." Abdomen punch. "My heart really hurts so much." Abdomen punch. "My heart really, really hurts." Abdomen punch. Bang 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 dash. Brother Shaoxing slumped on the wooden floor powerlessly. What kind of experience was this? It was probably like being punched to the legendary Hell's Gate, then being pulled out and punched again. It went back and forth several times. "My heart hurts so much. I was wrong. I was wrong. Looking at the fist raised high, Brother Xiaoxing's soul suddenly trembled. Although he was foaming at the mouth, he couldn't care about anything else and shouted twice. The fist swung down and finally stopped above Brother Xiaoxing's forehead. It was about an inch away. Brother Xiaoxing only felt that his scalp was numb. If this fist really hit his forehead, he felt that his whole head would explode into a paste. Brother Xiaoxing couldn't help but gulp subconsciously. The white-robed monk nodded at this time. He loosened his fist and turned it into a palm. He stroked Brother Xiaoxing's head and said earnestly, "I hit you because I really love you." Wukong, among the several disciples, second brother has a sweet mouth and understands my heart the most. He also gets my favor, so along the way, I was most willing to let second brother eat more. As for third brother, he doesn't know how to speak, he only knows how to do things silently. He is born to be a black slave, so I can only let third brother do the moving work. But I still love you the most. You see, along the way, except for fighting monsters, I didn't have to care about anything else. How comfortable it was, right? Don't you think so? Brother Xiaoxing only felt that the palm holding his head was getting stronger and stronger, as if his head would be crushed at any time, so he nodded with a pale face. Do you feel my love for you? Wukong, do you feel it? I feel it. Ahmed Bao. The white-robed monk finally let go of his palm, revealing a mouth of bright white teeth, and even helped Brother Xiaoxing up. Brother Xiaoxing touched his chest, only to feel that a mouthful of blood had accumulated in his body. The huge demon power in his body was almost destroyed directly, as if he was beaten back to his original state. He couldn't help but be shocked. Although this white-robed monk looked handsome, there was no fluctuation of power in his body. He didn't expect the fist to be so terrifying. What is the origin of the white-robed monk on the 6th floor of the immortal suppressing pagoda? Is he really the one mentioned in the myth? By the way, Wukong, you haven't told me yet. What year is it now? Is the emperor outside still my brother emperor? The white-robed monk suddenly asked. Brother Xiaoxing's heart trembled. He hesitated for a few times, then asked carefully, May I ask your name, elder? Wukong, you are being naughty again? The white-robed monk shook his head. Seeing the fist raised again, he said with a frown, I am Master Sanzang, the popular demon race beauty on the westbound road. I am also known as Brother Emperor. Sun Xiaoxing only felt like he was struck by lightning. His brain exploded in an instant. His face was pale, and he muttered to himself, You are Master Sanzang? Impossible, impossible. The westbound road is just a made-up story. Impossible, impossible. Sun Xiaoxing was a stone monkey that burst out from a spiritual stone in the mountain. He relied on himself to absorb the sun and the moon in the mountain and finally condensed his demon body. Although he was born as a stone monkey with powerful demon power, there were still powerful demons in the land of Kelowna. In the beginning, a powerful demon like him was actually worse than the big shots of the 4 celestial clans. It was just that Sun Xiaoxing was born to fight, and his combat power was extraordinary. He also made a name for himself in the territory of the demon race. If he really wanted to fight, even the big shots of the 4 celestial clans could only avoid him. He was originally not called Sun Xiaoxing, but his origin was very similar to someone in the westbound road in the myth. He simply used this as a background and changed his name to Sun Xiaoxing. He let people call him Brother Xiaoxing in order to spread his fame. After the spiritual chi of Mount Tai exploded, Sun Xiaoxing returned to the deep mountain that he obtained. He also experienced a series of opportunities. His strength greatly increased, and he entered the realm of Demon King. He wanted to rush all the way to the level of Demon King in one go and then come out to be a demon. However, he suddenly received a message from Su Zijuan, so he went out of the mountain and came to the 6th floor of the immortal suppressing pagoda in Xianyuan Palace. Su Zijuan, what was the purpose of letting him bring this unknown monk out? This monk claimed to be Master Sanzang, but Sun Shaoxing knew that there was no Buddhism in this world. It was not that there was no Buddhism in this world, but there was no Buddha. No, there were many Buddhas in the imprinted land, but that was another myth. There was no Buddhism in Kelowna. There wasn't a single Buddhist cultivator. Since ancient times there had only been Taoism. Buddhism in the human world was just an ordinary monk and an ancient temple. Sun Shaoxing's mind was in a mess at this time, squatting on the ground. Firstly, he was beaten by the fist of the white-robed monk. Secondly, the information revealed by the white-robed monk was impacting Sun Shaoxing's understanding of the myth of Kelowna. The white-robed monk blinked at this time, looked at his fist, and muttered, "Could it be that my love is too heavy? Wukong, how are you? Don't scare me." "I'm not the Wukong you are talking about." Suddenly, Sun Shaoxing took a deep breath and said with difficulty, "I'm not that monkey. My real name is Shi Shaodang." Shi Shaodang? The white-robed monk was stunned and immediately nodded. "Hello, Brother Shi. I'm little bald head of Shiyue 3 Stars Cave." "You?" Brother Shaoxing slowly breathed a sigh of relief and got up again. Although the monk's fist was heavy, it was not to the extent of killing him. The demonic power in his body had calmed down. After shaking a few times, the external injuries on his body had recovered a lot. He looked at the white-robed monk and said, "I was asked by someone to take you out of this immortal-suppressing pagoda. Are you going?" The monk's fist was too hard. If he didn't leave, Sun Shaoxing knew that he couldn't make him leave in a short time. At this time, in the immortal-suppressing pagoda, Gongsun Wuzong and the white-robed young man didn't know the situation of the battle. But Gongsun Wuzong had already called for people in the palace. The outside of the immortal-suppressing pagoda was probably overcrowded at this time. Although Su Zijuan gave him the key to enter the palace, under the state of alert of the entire Xianyuan palace, he couldn't break out even if he had 10 lives. If the monk didn't leave now, Brother Shaoxing thought that he could only leave this place first. After going back to find Su Zijuan and ask her about it, he would consider whether to come again. "Brother Shi, do you have a way to leave this place?" The white-robed monk blinked and asked at this time. Sun Shaoxing directly threw out the compass in his hand. "It can take us back to the first floor of the immortal-suppressing pagoda. The outer door of the pagoda has been opened. It's easy to go out, but the outside may be full of soldiers of the Xianyuan palace." "It doesn't matter." The white-robed monk smiled at this time and said, I have successfully dug a tunnel many years ago. I can guarantee that we can leave without being noticed." Tunnel? Brother Shaoxing's eyes widened again. The white-robed monk flicked his cassock and said proudly, Back then I was deeply trapped in the womanland. Those generals and ministers came to find me every day. If I didn't have the ability to dig a tunnel, I would have been discovered by the womanland emperor. The harem would be on fire. But looking at the white-robed monk suddenly raising his fist at this time, Brother Shaoxing suddenly pursed his mouth and said helplessly, "Then let's go now. I'm afraid there will be problems if we are late." "Wait, Brother Shi, I still have to get something," the white-robed monk said quickly at this time. With that said, under Brother Shaoxing's puzzled gaze, the white-robed monk suddenly ran to the place where the futon was located. The white-robed monk first stuffed the wooden fish on the ground into his cassock, then picked up the futon, rolled it into a ball, and stuffed it to the back of his waist. Then, he lay on the wooden floor and clasped the wooden board on the ground with his fingers. Brother Shaoxing opened his mouth and took a few steps forward. He saw that the white-robed monk had already dug out the wooden floor at this time. The wooden floor was seamless. Even if he bumped into it, there was no crack at all. He really didn't know how the monk dug it out. Found it. The white-robed monk took out a long wooden box from a secret compartment under the wooden board at this time, and then stuffed it into his arms with bright eyes. It seemed that he treasured it very much. "What is this?" Brother Shaoxing couldn't help but frown and ask. Shh. At this time, the white-robed monk mysteriously made a shushing gesture and said in a low voice, Wukong, how many times have I told you to keep your voice down? If people know that the moonlight treasure box is in my hands, the number of monsters who want to catch me will increase by dozens of times. Those female demons are still alright. At most, they just want to mate with me. But those male demons are going to be stewed and eaten by me. Moon what? Sun Shaoxing suddenly screamed in shock. Moonlight Cash. Hashtag PS1. Thank you for the cuteness of delusory promise, pass me the tea. PS2. Ding, cuteness master mission submitted. PS3, 1/1.